Hi, welcome to episode 42 of Talk About the Passion, Reaction Making Impact. If you are listening to this on the day I am posting it, May 24th, 2019, there is a reason I chose this date, and the reason is the band Rush, particularly the song Lakeside Park, which includes the lyrics, "Everyone would gather on the 24th of May, sitting in the sand to watch the fireworks display." There's no fireworks on this episode, but the timing was right to release this with an inside nod to the band that we talk about on this episode. And as Brian mentioned before we started recording, it's no coincidence that he married his wife on this date. If you're a regular listener, you know I had Brian and Guy on a few episodes back for a regular episode where we talked about their timeline getting into music, their friendship, and of course the band Rush. While there, we spent quite literally half a day talking about all things music and just generally had a great time. We talked about getting together in the future and recording some more focused episodes. We got a group email going between the three of us, and for weeks we shot ideas back and forth. All of them great, and I can't wait to tackle all of them. We figured on one afternoon we could at least get a few episodes done, as long as we kept on point, didn't stray too much. Fast forward to the Saturday afternoon, I'm driving up to Brian's house where we recorded this, where we meet and head out, and Brian takes me to RR Records in Lowell, which was amazing. We spent a couple hours in there hanging out with Ron, who's great, and that was my first time in that location. I found a number of good records, and hopefully we'll make this a regular stop when I go up to record with these guys. Guy would be meeting us later in the afternoon, so while driving back to Brian's, I realized we had all these, great ideas, but never really actually decided on one that we would be doing on this particular day, let alone two or three. When I got there, both Brian and Guy had notebooks filled with ideas, sectioned off with all sorts of notes and tabs and this on each subject. We ended up recording two episodes this day. One was actually one that we had talked about and they had plenty of notes about, which will air at a later time. The first one, however, came out of the blue. The one subject I knew the three of us could talk about endlessly was obviously Rush. So we sat down and I said, let's each write 5 Rush songs down and then go around the table and talk about why we picked that one. In no order, don't think too hard about it. We'll each take turns and just see what happens. I hit record. And I think what we came up with was a huge success. It's a natural sounding conversation, and made me immediately excited to record more of these with these two, especially after listening to it a few times to edit it and put this podcast together. We cover Rush from many eras, some surprising songs, some obvious songs, and some I actually wasn't 100% familiar with myself. I hope if you, the listener, are not a Rush fan, you seek some of these songs out on your own and go down the huge rabbit hole of our collective favorite rock band, Rush. And if you're a Rush fan, I imagine you'll enjoy this quite a bit. This is definitely, some next level fan nerding out on some stuff that might not be for everyone, but the passion the three of us have for everything we talk about here and what, we'll talk about in the future, I think is pretty electric and as real as it gets. So I hope you listen to the whole thing. Our 3 lists aren't our definite top 5, and we already talked about doing more Rush episodes in the future, especially since I really wanted to put Jacob's Ladder on this, which I realized on my drive home. So on behalf of all 3 of us, I hope you enjoy listening to it. I've on our Facebook page, there's going to be a YouTube playlist with all of these songs that we talk about, the 15 different songs, so if you're not familiar with them, you can check them out, or if you are, it makes a nice little playlist. A couple more things. I'm on social media, Facebook and Instagram. Just search Talk About the Passion Podcast, and you should be able to find it. You can listen to this podcast on all types of places. Most places you play podcasts like Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and even YouTube. We'd love it if you left a comment on Facebook or Instagram and tell us your favorite Rush songs and what you thought of the episode. So let's get to the party here. Thanks for listening, and here we go. Episode 42 with Brian and Guy. Thanks for listening. So I am here on May the 4th of 2019, and we're hopefully going to put this up on the 24th of May, where we will all be gathered to talk about Rush. And I'm here with Guy Wetherbee.
That's right.
And Brian Smith.
Yep.
Who did an episode with me a couple episodes ago, and we're going to be doing some regular episodes on all sorts of stuff. But this, what we're doing today is we're talking about the band Rush.
Again,
exactly.
Yeah, we're going to bring it up
still,
again.
or as my wife would say, still.
That's
exactly.
a good one, still.
Yeah. And one of the ideas we came up with today was to list our, just sort of on the spot, we just did this 5 minutes before we hit record here, come up with 5 of your favorite Rush songs, which will probably change on my drive home tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Mine have changed already since I wrote them 5 minutes
ago.
ago.
I know Brian's is going to change. I know Christian, mine will certainly change.
Yeah.
I mean, and I wrote 12.
Yeah.
And then had to cull it to 5.
Yeah.
So that's.
Oh, so you got, I only went with 5, but you have to pick those 5.
I have to.
You can't just cull as
I might
we go along.
wait a minute. Hang on. Let me look at my list. I might change them right now.
And as we talked about on the other episode before, Rush was sort of one of the first bands all 3 of us collectively fell in love with, sort of in the same way, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And, at different times, probably just because of age differences. And, but I think the
probably
eras
within the
are
same zone. For
Yeah,
sure,
yeah.
All within that same wheelhouse, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
as soon as I heard Brian, I heard them on the radio. I
Right.
didn't know who they were.
Yeah.
Liked it, didn't love it. It was part of the radio. And then
Right.
Brian got a cassette. And we covered that in our first
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
Brian got a cassette, and then we were actively listening to an album.
Right.
And there were tracks that had never been on, Witch Hunt. What's that?
Right.
It is a strange song, very strange song.
Yeah.
And then Signals came out, and that's when Brian and I we've been equally fans from that day forward all the way to today.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
So let's we'll start to my left. So let's what's your and these aren't in any order. They're not
Right, yeah, they're not in order by...
So they're just-
Do you just
just
want me
5.
to pick so 5 songs? Do you just want me to pick one I want to talk about right now? No particular
let's
order.
just go through and we're gonna see what if any of our songs overlap or if any
so
of us...
you just name the first song in your list, and then we'll say whether or not we also had that.
So here's a song that totally blew my mind in a strange way with Rush the first time I heard it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a deep cut side 2, Caress of Steel. It's called Bacchus Plateau.
Oh yeah.
It's a real mellow song.
Yeah.
It's there's a much more mellow song on Caress of Steel. That's 75. They put-
Panacea, right?
yeah.
It's mellower than that.
Yeah, and then Lakeside Park brings it up from
Oh,
there,
yeah, a
right?
little bit,
So we
yeah.
get some gentle songs on that album.
Right.
But I found that album early, like in the early 80s.
Yeah.
Brian, the same thing. We bought that record pretty much at the same time.
Yeah.
And we're
We
blown
were kind
away.
of, I just thought of this. It's kind of funny. We used to, after we both got into Rush, right? Our parents neither of us were especially well off or anything.
Right.
If you could con your parents into an $8 album back then, seriously, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
So we would consciously not repeat. Like if
Yeah,
I
get
got
this-
a copy of Hemispheres, I would own it technically, but we
Right.
would almost share it.
Right.
So when he got an opportunity to buy a record, he would not buy Hemispheres because
Yeah.
it was more important to get one we didn't have.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Bacchus Plateau is this neat little 3-minute song that just kind
awesome.
of percolates on side 2
Right.
in the middle of all this crazy stuff, because it's basically their first stab at 2112.
Yeah.
Side 2 really isn't a concept album,
Right.
but
As
they
far
present
as
it that way. It's the Fountain of Lamneth, and it's got
Yeah.
a beginning, middle, and an end, and all the songs kind of go together.
As a concept piece, like a sidelong thing,
Yeah.
I would say it's better than 2112 is.
I prefer
Yeah.
it better. I
Yeah.
think
I think
2112 is a better
I think
concept.
it's has more dynamic shifting in it, ups and downs. It's more
Yeah.
like a ride from one place
Yeah.
to another.
Yeah.
It's just
I
love
don't-
it. The story's better.
I would have liked it if and again, these are young guys. They're in their 20s,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And they just got a new drummer
Yeah.
the same year,
Yeah.
right? Neil Peart comes in 75. They record
Right.
Fly By Night.
Night,
They
yeah.
tour like 900 dates. And they say, let's record another album this year. I mean, they're all completely wired, right?
Yeah.
So they're trying to, and then we'll do, and of course Neil's writing all these lyrics and doing all these drum lines. So they're like, we'll do this concept record. Yeah, we
Yeah.
can do it. So their first take at a concept record is Caress of Steel. And, and the band themselves have talked many times. They don't like it.
They're
Yeah.
Not much at
yeah.
all.
Right.
But Bacchus Plateau is this neat little tight I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's just so not a Rush song that that's why
it's awesome.
It hooked me day one, and it's got this very, nostalgic lyric. You know, they're talking about drinking wine and misty memories. It's it's almost melancholy and a little silly.
Yeah.
And I went through a period like 10 years ago where I all of a sudden realized how silly and stupid the whole Caress of Steel album was. Like the Necromancer. There's a for those who don't know, there's a part in the Necromancer where they slow the drummer's voice down so that they can have a voiceover. It's like in great traces of dawn, tinged the eastern sky. Right? It's the silliest thing that you've ever heard.
Yeah.
But when I was young, I loved it and it was fascinating. And then for some reason, like 10 years ago or so, I was like, this is the silliest record. Yeah. And then I got right over it. And now I love it again. I'm fine. I had my little blip. But yeah, Bacchus Plateau. That's that little song right there in the middle of all that. There's a lot of crazy like blues fusion and some early progressive rock that's going on Caress of Steel. Stuff that's definitely not anywhere near as what I would call quote unquote heavy metal. Yeah. Where 2112 really sharpened. They got rid of a lot of the blues. With 2112. Yeah. But that's always been to me, Caress of Steel is an Alex album all over the place. It's just so...
It's heavy.
It's heavy, but it's hazy, and it's real laid back. There's tons of acoustic guitar all over that thing.
Well, it's
his acoustic work is one of the things I think is... I mean, this is a greater topic, and we'll maybe talk about it later, but his acoustic work is overshadowed by the band.
Definitely,
But he's just such a great acoustic player, and I love listening. And so Bacchus Plateau has some of that acoustic going on, and it's got one of Alex's best solos in my mind ever.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
The whole song fades out. He doesn't get to his solo until the end of the song, and it just fades on his solo, and the solo just takes you off literally into like a meadow. It's ridiculous and corny, but that's one of my favorite songs ever. Right there.
Yeah, it's an amazing song.
Love it.
And it's funny is like we were saying before we turned the machine there on to record it. That absolutely, but I mean, my choices are going to change before this podcast. I mean, seriously, because the minute that you brought that up, I start to think about that record. Now, I didn't put a song from that record on my 5 when I came up with them off the top of my head, but I should have.
Yeah.
So whatever,
What do you got?
I got one from Presto.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Available Light.
Yeah. It's
a fucking masterpiece. I think I'm not lying either. I think it's one of their, might be one of their best. It's an epic song.
Yep.
At the time that the record came out, it like immediately destroyed me. It became like I was obsessed with it. I thought that was one of the best jams of all time, and it's still super emotive and amazing. Mm-hmm. You didn't find out till later, but Geddy was sick, right? He had the flu. So it's like the one and only time that he's got that gravelly thing in his voice, like behind the Geddy Lee noise that everybody hates. Yeah. And it's just, again, the people often tell me they don't think Alex is underrated. Oh, everybody knows who he is. Right. I think he's underrated. I don't think even people that know what a great guitarist he is know what a great guitarist he is.
Or just
I think
how
he's
great it is.
Ludicrously good, and that solo is a masterpiece solo from him.
Right.
I don't know where you guys fall on that record. That's kind of a weird one. That record is kind of in a place where a lot of people are like, I've never even heard it.
Yeah. On my top 10 list that I had to cull down to 5 because, Christian made us. And so this doesn't take 9 hours. I had a song from Presto. And the 2 songs that I was torn between, Available Light's one of them. Again, ironically, it's kind of like Bacchus Plateau that way. It's that weird song in the middle of that set list that isn't a rocker. It's not really a ballad. It's got this strength. There's a lot of piano on it.
Kind of reminds me a little bit of Losing It.
Yeah, it's got that. Here's a place where we're going to stretch out. This is a deep album track. We have no interest in promoting this song, and people will never play it live. Nobody will like it. We're just going to.
That was interesting because I never thought of it till that way. But that's the Rush song on the record, and by that I mean. I mean, obviously the whole record is a Rush, but you know what I mean?
I know exactly.
That's the Rush song. That song isn't for anybody but those guys. That's the Rush song.
It's an indulgent song. Yeah, they're like,
it's brilliant.
We recorded this only because Geddy
and to
said,
this
I'm
day,
brave enough to do it.
It's one of those ones where I don't listen to Presto all the time or whatever, but when it comes on after I haven't heard it in a long time, I'm stoked that it came on. I'm like, what an ass kicker. It's a good one.
Yep.
Are you a fan of that record at all?
Not a huge fan, but I remember.
I think it's one that I tell people a lot too. If they think they didn't like it, go back because it aged very well. And in fact, I think some of it was before its time enough that you might stuff you didn't like then you would like now because it's a different world. You know?
And to me, because it's just the end of that's the end of the '80s Rush, and it doesn't really have any '80s hallmarks to Rush at all.
Right.
And a lot of that is due to the fact that they got Rupert Hine famously from the Fix.
Yeah.
He produced the Fixes,
which incidentally to me at the time made sense to me.
He produced their big album "Reach the Beach,"
which is a brilliant record,
and they pulled him in for that album and "Roll the Bones." By the way,
I would actually argue that know to cut into our thing, but I would argue that "Reach the Beach" is a perfect record.
I love that record.
Yeah, it's better than Presto.
All killer. Well, I mean, all killer, no filler, but that's another subject.
It is.
But,
but Rupert's production, that clean, antiseptic '80s crystalline production. Rush was just dying for that, and for that
and they
album,
sounded great on it.
Yeah, for that album, it worked, and then it didn't work. I think he kind of took some of the metal out, and that's what people really right. But for Available Light,
if it had had a little bit better, not better. That's a loaded word. If it had had a little more aggressive production, it could have been Counterparts.
Yeah. Right.
Of its time,
Which again, Kevin Shirley production
which
is the
Geddy,
total polar opposite.
And
now,
which, as Geddy, I think, famously
again,
says right in the documentary, Counterparts, the sound of it is back to the rock and roll guts of Rush.
Right. But
what a monster.
But to your pick, Available Light needs Rupert Hine to produce it. If Kevin Shirley produces it, they're going to turn it into a rock song.
Right.
They're going to wreck it. They're going to lose that.
Yeah, he's going to tell Alex,
because it is, like you said, it's the Rush song on the album. It's totally 100% indulgent. It's for nobody else but them, which makes it a real treat to hear it.
Yeah. So that was mine. Yeah.
I like it.
Now we're on to.
See, now I wish I'd picked that song first, so I could have talked about it a little.
Man. Holy shit.
Yeah. I guess my first one was my first sort of favorite song by them, and it was like a hit, obviously, too, was Subdivisions.
That's a crossover. That's on my list.
Yeah, okay.
And that could be its own podcast. That's
that album or the song.
Word by word, note by note.
Yeah. And I think I'll be honest, I would be surprised if all three of us weren't extremely closely aligned as to exactly why the song is such a massive spike in...
Yeah, I think where I was in society, as a teenager in my school, that song was I was like, wow. Because I thought of them as just sort of like this weird, dark, classic, not classic because there was no classic rock, but just like this weird rock band that wasn't, because I was listening to, sort of started getting to metal like Maiden and Sabbath and Dio and stuff, and then I discovered
Did you have metal before you heard Rush or before you got into it? Okay, that's interesting. I didn't. I had only pop music.
Yeah, me either.
Rush
I came to metal way after that.
So not to interrupt your Subdivisions, but
just for
Rush was the heaviest band I'd ever heard.
Yeah.
When I got into them in 82.
Yeah. So that's an interesting
So for you,
twist,
they're not the heaviest band.
No, my brother and I we had heard Van Halen right away.
What's also interesting about that is that Rush, the heaviness of Rush wasn't necessarily what sucked you in. You didn't think of it as a metal band.
Yeah, I didn't think of it at all. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So in retrospect, when I go back and listen to like Permanent Waves or one of the songs that they have on here, or a couple. Like I think of those as like heavy, like
right?
Oh yeah, of course, sure.
But yeah, so Subdivisions. When I first heard it, because I had heard that, like, just sort of thought of them as like a weird, like hard rock band, and never really paid attention to the lyrics. And then when I remember actually buying that record and reading the lyrics along with it.
Yeah,
going,
Liner Note City.
Oh, this
right
song
there.
is
one of the best. Yeah,
everything on that record. The Analog Kid.
That record is a masterpiece. I think we discussed that at some length in the previous podcast.
Yeah.
That's and what's really funny about that is I don't know, because I'm not really connected through the internet or anything to Rush fandom as a thing. You know what I mean? As a cultural thing.
Yeah.
I don't know where that record falls in most people's things, but I don't think that record is the one for a lot of people like it is for us. So
it really...
2112 seems to be the big one for most people.
I spent a lot of time years ago on Rush forums when the internet bloomed and you started to find forums and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I joined up and made thousands of ridiculous posts and had arguments with people online, which amounted to absolutely nothing.
Right,
but the Rush fans, right?
Well, Geddy Lee.
I did meet some really interesting people and some like-minded people, and also some people who weren't like-minded at all.
Yeah.
I found that the UK fans almost to a man tapped out at Signals as at the latest, and nothing else ever met their their acceptance.
I have friends like that now.
Yeah.
Like that
One thing I always thought was funny about that, I discussed this with Zeph when we played with Milligram.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about this.
He's the drummer for Milligram, by the way.
Oh, yeah, sorry. He's the drummer for Milligram. And we were discussing that very thing. The idea about where people tap out and this and that. And he and I were discussing the idea that everybody... after Signals, it's all about keyboards, and I always think it's funny how much everybody loves moving pictures, which is saturated in keyboards.
Even Farewell to Kings.
The main intro lead to Tom Sawyer, which is arguably the biggest song in people, is a keyboard fucking lead.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's that big giant bass stab
and
then right throughout.
But I always just think it's funny that they want to blame. I don't like Rush after this period because of the keyboards. But one of the records I love the most is the one with all the keyboards on it.
Sure.
And then in the guitar playing, I wrote on Grace Under Pressure is like some of his best guitar solos.
Well, I mean, let's face it, the guitar, the analog kid is a monster.
We go back to a topic that we'll probably end up talking about on another podcast another time. Mm-hmm. Is uncelebrated or maybe just not quite as celebrated as they should be.
Yeah.
People, musicians, and specifically guitar players.
Yeah.
I invite any guitar player of any stripe, beginner, advanced, anybody in between, just put on, even if you don't know Rush, put on Grace Under Pressure, beginning to end, listen to it, and say, I'm going to pick apart these songs, try to play these songs on the guitar, just kind of give them a little once over.
Right.
You'll be absolutely 100% ready to throw your guitars out into the street and let a truck run over them and say, nobody can play this. No one possibly.
And the thing about Alex that's really
it's
amazing,
unsettlingly complex.
Is that it's unsettlingly complicated and crazy,
smooth.
but it's completely palatable to somebody on the radio that doesn't know
He
that.
makes it sound so effortless.
Yeah,
and
he's
you
a
hear
monster.
like, these are just songs. Down.
And he has such a strange command of dynamics.
It didn't sound like anybody.
No, and interestingly enough, I would argue that Rush is one of the very few bands. Nobody in that band sounds like anybody but them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there are touchstones along the way, but then they just, but they're small.
Signals in Toto is amazing, and Subdivisions itself is an epic masterpiece. I would go as far as to say stunning fucking tour de force of greatness. That one of the few songs I can say that I've heard quite literally thousands and thousands of times, and if I put that record on right now, it'll make the hair stand up on my neck. It's
and lyrically too, like the lines where we were like growing up, like outside of cities, like the suburbs have no chance to soothe the restless dreams of youth.
Of course.
It made me just want to go out and explore the world, and
I remember the part of the video that always the people get caught in ticking traps and just a close up of a clock and realizing.
Did you have MTV early, Christian?
Yeah.
We didn't, but my aunt and uncle, and we visited them frequently, had MTV before we had cable.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
With my family, so of course as young kids, we'd go to visit aunt and uncle, and we say, "Hi, how you doing?" and run right upstairs and go to TV. We're gonna, and literally I would bring my boom box.
Oh, okay.
So not even any video, just
MTV,
audio.
right?
And I would literally tell my brother and sister, "Shh, absolutely silence." And then we would sit in front of MTV and record it for 3.5 hours, right? Or until I had to flip the tape.
And the video is really
video
epic
is
too.
incredible.
I mean,
right.
The
that
shots
was one of the first Rush videos
of the suburban, the subdivision neighborhoods, and that really fast, harsh cuts
going
of the
school hallways
of the train, that subway going by, and
I wasn't a big video game guy even in the 80s, and I actively tried to get good at Tempest because Tempest
it's in the video.
was featured in the video. That's the only reason I cared about that
I always
video game.
thought one interesting point in the video I always thought was that when the kid, the main kid in the video, that's us, it's you or me,
right?
The kid that's getting
you, that's me, that's
is walking down the hall. One of the kids that like hits him with his shoulder and looks at him is the bully is wearing a Rush t-shirt.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And I always thought that maybe
but
again making
Rush,
this out to be way
some
irony,
sort of
right?
irony,
Yeah,
well maybe again thinking way overthinking it as a kid. It was about like our fans don't necessarily even know what this is about. You might be bullied by the kid wearing our shirt, but we're fuck you.
No,
like
right,
yeah. It was just I don't know. For whatever reason, immediately with Rush, they were one of the first bands that's an interesting point where I felt the need to micro dissect every inch of every video, every lyric, every part of it had to be completely disassembled. And Signals and Subdivisions itself are epic.
With the exception of one song on Signals, with the exception of one song, the drummer Neil Peart writes everything. He wrote this other 7 songs. They collaborated on chemistry. Yeah. So Neil, I mean, think about a guy that's just come out of his 20s. He's in his 30s now. That's it. And so he's in his 30s. I mean, for me, that's in the rearview mirror. 30s are a while ago.
20 years ago.
And I'm thinking about the writing that I did when I was I'm a musician. I wrote music. I wrote stories. To craft an album of that magnitude for me, I mean, it's very personal.
Oh yeah, totally.
This is a very personal conversation. So, but an album of that magnitude, Signals is like top, like number 1 album in the top 10. Yeah, it's been that way a lot for the past since it's been released. Yeah, to create 7 different chapters of a story on an album like that, and they're all just so they speak to you. Again, sometimes a little abstractly, right? We're going to talk about, the space shuttle. I'm like, well, the space shuttle was a big deal to me. It sounds very coy right now. If
it sounds corny right now, but
if you played that song right now, to a lot of people, it would sound a little silly about talking about the space shuttle and how awesome it was to be there to watch it.
In 1982?
That was, I mean, they used to take us out of class, Brian. You remember this. I'm sure you remember this too, Christian. They'd take us out of class, bring us down to a lecture hall, get a really crappy TV 1,000 feet away, and they would say,
and make you watch the space shuttle.
Okay, boys and girls, the space
I was
shuttle
watching
was
the one that exploded in science class when it happened.
Right, that's where we all remembered. Right, we all remember where we were. So we were in a lecture hall.
As a 13-year-old kid going,
but Christian, that's exactly it, isn't it? We were all in a lecture hall watching a TV because they said when the space shuttle goes up, this is what you do. So that song had had resonance,
and because of what that meant at the time, that is part of that record is I don't even know how to say that word
indelibly.
It's connected to that
blood.
time.
Yeah, right. I know
it's connected to that time, which makes it very apt. There's a song so connected to that time on the record. It is of that time.
Right. Subdivisions was the most personal song by
of
far
all time. Maybe
record.
still. Dave Monaghan had the best ever description of it.
This is true.
He goes, "Oh, it sounds like Joy Division playing a Yes song."
And
I was like, "Wow, it's
I mean, if you want to just strip it down for people, you could.
But an awesome masterpiece of such a magnitude that it could be its own podcast. Just the song.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what's your next one?
What's your next one, guy?
Oh man, on the spot.
Come on.
Now I have to refer to my list because.
What's the album? First, lay the album on me because I want to try and guess it.
I'm going to go with my instinct. This Rush song isn't on an album.
Okay.
Never recorded it. Never put it on the album.
Never recorded it. Then how did you hear it?
Well, they never recorded it in a studio.
Okay, I'm pretty sure I know what it is.
It's only live. Brian knows what it is. Tell me what it is.
Is it Garden Road?
Correct.
It's Garden Road.
Yeah.
God damn it.
So there's an early song, probably around '74, just after. I mean, it's a song from their '60s days. So Rush was around in the '60s playing, church basements, stuff like that. They were a bunch of teenagers, and just like a lot of musicians,
that song is.
They took every gig they could, and they had an original drummer who checked out early. Yeah. After they recorded one record with John Rutsey on drums, that was the Rush album, self-titled.
Are you familiar with the song?
I am.
It's so savage that it absolutely every second of it sounds like it's about to fucking come off the rails. And constantly throughout it, I'm going, who did they as much as I love it dearly in my heart, I'm like, who did they think they were going to sell this to?
Right. So what is the story behind that? Why did they they never recorded
so that song was a song from the bar days and the church basement days and their early days, taking every and any gig that they could.
Yeah.
So from like 69 to 73, John, Alex, and Getty just did Canada and for a lot of times into the U.S. You know, they've got a big. I think they've got a big. You know, all those Midwest and
like Michigan,
and
right?
upper
Detroit
Midwest, you know, right? Chicago and Milwaukee. You know, they have a lot of
that was
fans
like
there. But
that chick broke him on the radio, right?
Donna Halper, right?
Donna Halper,
yeah. So this was one of those songs that was in the stable, if you will, of songs that they were playing when they would play opening sets. They didn't have the album out yet, right? So they recorded an album with John Rutsey. They tore that, and then of course they get Neil shortly thereafter on drums. So Neil is pressed into service quickly. They're not writing songs yet, but it's soon to happen, and that becomes Fly By Night in 1975. But in 73, 74, I'm sorry.
Right.
Neil's in the band, and now they need to go out and they need to open for, I don't know, bands like Kiss. Right. Uriah Heep, again, a huge UK band. All kinds of big bands. Rush is getting a lot of press for being very dynamic and kind of, because it's weird proto Led Zeppelin. You know, but more than that. You know, they're a strange, weird little band from Canada, and they're a 3-piece, so it's unique. So in the effort, in the you know, trying to fill the gaps of the songs that they know and not play covers and things like that. Some of the old songs from back in the day show up. So, flash forward to me to being a Rush fan. They are famous, as Christian and Brian will both attest to. They're famous for having nothing in the vault. There's no B-sides. There's no live songs. There's nothing to mine.
That's what made
version 2 of, you know. I think I'm going bald.
Yeah, and I mean, like Garden Road is one of those songs, and I can think of maybe a half dozen of them where they were, as a kid, man, before the internet. The only way you would find these songs, Garden Road specifically,
on a bootleg,
is either on a bootleg or at some record show, right?
That's right.
And then the quality might be this, that, or the other thing. But so these sorts of records from these bands became like holy grails. Like I remember finding the first time I ever found a copy to buy that had of something with Garden Road on it.
Exactly right. One of my earliest memories of looking for B-sides or anything different from Rush, because once you're a fan,
you know everything.
You're in, and then you want everything. Especially when you're a young guy, you want everything. So Brian and I are going to record shows and things like that. I bought a vinyl record called Stellar Dynamics. It's a bootleg, early set, like 73, 74, and I sold it to Brian. I regret that ever since, but I sold it to Brian long ago. And it had songs like Bad Boy on it, which was a Beatles cover, right? And stuff.
Which is also awesome.
Yeah, it's a great.
Better than the Beatles version.
They do a great version. So anything like that, we were hungry for. So when this song first crossed my path, many years later, after, you know, looking for bootlegs and you know, whatever. I said, here's one of those songs that predated Neil's arrival, but Neil's playing on it. Here's a live recording. And I clicked on it, and my mind was actually shattered in two. It's basically, it's this punk rock AC/DC. I mean, they've never released it, so I almost wish I had it queued up so we could play it right now, because we wouldn't get in trouble for playing it. But
which is crazy that it's never been released ever.
Just look it up on YouTube or Google. Rush Garden Road, and prepare to have your brain explode in half.
It's so punk rock.
If you know Rush, this will blow your mind. If you have no idea about Rush, this will blow your mind. It's this. It's so much energy. You can tell. And again, as a fan of the band and as a decades-long fan of the band, I pretend that I have more radar and insight into the band than I do. But I can feel their exuberance about having this new guy, this drummer in the band, who's going to play the song we used to play that was kind of fun to play and energetic. But now this guy is playing the drums, and he is kicking ass so hard that we're going to just take it to level 17 instead of level 10.
As the new guy that's got to prove himself, he's so savage.
Yeah.
It's absolutely filthy. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
It makes me want to take a shower every time I listen to it.
It's awesome.
And I
yeah.
listen to
It's
it a
a
lot.
classic.
So
Yeah,
fortunately,
brilliant.
I tend to be pretty clean. But
Yeah.
that song is a Rush song
Masterpiece, yeah, it's
that
good.
most Rush fans don't know.
Yeah.
Or if they know about it, they acknowledge
they
it and
just-
they don't care.
yeah,
but
yeah.
for me, because
It's
I wasn't there
awesome.
at the time,
Awesome.
it's
Yeah.
one of those
I'm gonna have to
fundamental
revisit more.
underpinnings.
Yeah, because I mean, I remember.
It's a great song.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, the riff, right?
Oh, the riff
Yeah.
is so
That's what I
filthy.
remember.
It is
Gross.
absolutely.
And Geddy's voice, he's so unhinged.
Yeah.
he never sings higher
God,
or more
wow.
violent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that.
oh, he's coming
Right.
off the fucking rails the whole time.
No, it's
Savage, yeah.
literally like he's jumping on and off of a moving train the entire
Yeah,
song.
it's absolutely nuts. It's insane.
Right.
Nice.
Yep. Love it. Brian, what do you
I'm
got?
up. I got the I'm gonna go with the moving pictures track, the Camera Eye.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Why did I
which
know that?
Is
Yeah.
fuck
I crossed that one off my list too.
again.
Damn it!
Yeah, it was. It was one of the hugest wins to see them do it live.
Yeah.
After
Wait, no,
begging
no.
it for
What
it.
tour? What tour was it? Was that 40?
No,
No.
Time Machine.
Okay.
When they played Moving Pictures,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
entirely.
Yeah.
That's right.
Entirety. You know, I
And-
bought the vinyl even of them doing it.
And to Brian and I, to our credit, the nerd in us went, oh, but they still kind of edited it too.
Yeah,
today."
yeah, we're still gonna pick it apart.
We are flipping out, jumping out of our own skins, watching
I
them do this.
remember,
Because it's the first time you and I have ever seen that live. They
Yeah.
did truncated versions earlier, but we were too young. We didn't
Yeah,
see the movie pictures
and
till-
you know that was one of the
So
songs.
it's the first
that was-
time we're seeing it live, and we're like, oh, they're still shortening it up a little bit.
And it was one of the
But we're
songs
flipping
that
out.
earlier, you know, younger when you're into deep, like into the fandom, you're reading like, you know, what do you amateurly produced zines about bands
Yeah.
and stuff.
Right.
You know, this was a song that fans literally begged and petitioned for decades.
It became a thing. It definitely became a
and
thing. I
and
remember
they
that.
were like, well, you know, it was a technology thing. We couldn't play the song live
Right.
when it was blah 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 blah. And we're like, yeah. And you said that about Witch Hunt. You've since done it live so many times.
Yeah.
And you said that about Vital Signs. And just play the song, you know.
Right.
And I remember at one point Geddy saying he didn't feel like, you know, I don't think I feel like I can really sing that song honestly. You're like, Geddy, listen.
I know.
It, no,
Right.
it
You're
that,
still,
Neil-
you're still
from
doing
a-
it in the mood every night. so
Yeah, right,
that's-
and I'm like,
if we're
you know,
going into deep Rush fan lore here, that song absolutely became a thing, and I
Yeah.
put that
of
in
course,
quotes
and I
for
think
live.
that
they steadfastly refused to play it.
Same with Circumstances.
Yep.
That was one, and then they
Right.
finally broke that
Yeah,
one out.
for a long
Finally,
time
right.
they resisted, and then they got wise and they said they played everything, and everybody was happy.
um,
It's great.
yeah, and that song was one of the ones when Moving Pictures was the first record I ever heard by Rush, and when I heard the record, the tape cassette, I had never heard a single song of it on the radio
Yeah.
ever. Putting it in the tape player was the first time I ever heard it,
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
which was amazing. They talk about something I wish I could do again. Imagine that. And
Yeah, I was talking to him before we started, and
yeah, that
friend
was
of
a
mine-
great idea.
So a friend of mine, a guy I work with yesterday, was saying he was talking about the first time he heard Slayer, Rain and Blood. And
Right.
He said he was like, "What album would you love to go back to and listen to for the first time?"
the first
again?
time,
So
oh,
I thought it
wow.
was like a cool. But I said Signals. So, but anyway,
Right,
But,
so,
we'll go back to that another
I'm
time,
actually
but-
writing that down.
Yeah, write
for
that-
a
yeah, write
future
that because it's a
podcast
good
topic
one, right?
Because
Because
that's
I
a-
have
that's a-
multiple ones
That's a
Yeah,
great
same.
topic
for various
Yeah, I like
reasons.
that.
But so
and I
getting
re-
back to
Yeah, so the first time I heard that, I mean, I won't lie, literally song after song as they came out of the tape deck. And I didn't even have a tape player. I mean, it was like one of those school cassette
Yeah.
recorders
Is that-
with the
Does that open side two to that right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And song after song, note after note, minute after minute, the whole record just blew me away. I'd never heard anything like it.
Right.
But that song, flip that cassette over and hear this epic I mean, to me, that was no rock song. There was no song that long.
I know.
With
Right.
distinct sections broken into
Yeah.
chapters like a
Right.
book that tells a
Right.
story, and I was
It's
like,
broken into New York and London. It's 11 minutes
Yeah.
long.
it's
so-
11 minutes long,
right,
and
no pun intended. Camera Eye is very cinematic.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we've got the typewriter going and all this sound and these background sounds and this sequenced keyboard sound and a lot of little staccato drums.
and it's
and it's building this atmosphere. And anybody that's ever seen a Rush live video tape from like when they were kids, Exit Stage Left, they famously or infamously use the sound from the Camera Eye as a for the band to talk over as they introduce that videotape, and of course now
Exit Stage Left.
Exit Stage Left, the live
Oh
video,
yeah, and that part
Isn't
where the
that
song
great?
comes in and the whole crowd stands up and you're like,
they
that's one of those moments we were talking about where I'm at my limit. I have to invent something to describe how much I love that moment.
it's great.
You know, I wanna fucking light my head on fire,
so-
rip it off,
So
run across the street to the soccer field, kick a fucking goal with my own head, then put my head on,
And then
come
vomit.
back over here and listen to the record again. That's how good that. Oh, I kicked it again.
even the band
It's an epic masterpiece. And
understood
it's so,
how cinematic that was.
Yeah.
So, like,
Well,
we're
and
gonna,
it's
you know,
so-
our new our first live video. Well, we'll use that song
it's
that we
so,
didn't play live, by the way,
And it's
as
so
part
well-
of the soundtrack to this.
Yeah.
to
it's
this
so
videotape.
well
film.
To our
orchestrated.
film, right?
You know, the song is like a orchestral thing. Like it's almost like classical music, but it's a fucking rock band. You know? Like,
It has movements.
yeah, so that
right.
that was my that was my next
That's
one.
an
It was just
undeniable song.
insanely fucking
It would be on
good
my
song.
list.
So my next one is one that we talked about on your first one,
see.
and that would be the Necromancer,
The
Oh
Necromancer.
yeah,
which
See?
is like
Ha-
that's just
I'm
like
glad that that's on your list.
yeah,
yeah, of course.
Because it's one of my favorite songs.
yeah,
Yep.
And then in that brief moment I mentioned earlier, it wasn't.
yeah, yeah.
I completely
thought
found
it
it
was dumb.
ridiculous.
yeah.
And then I've come 180 back around and said,
Yeah.
no, it's totally fine.
Yeah. And
So
that
I'm
was-
glad we're going to talk about
Yeah,
it.
Yeah,
and
it's
for,
an amazing thing. Yeah.
for me, I think that one was the first, like, because, like, I think all of us, we discovered them around Signals and
Yeah, 1980 to
Yeah,
82,
yeah.
right
And
in
then-
there, right?
and then you went backwards.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah,
and
totally.
I feel like Caress of Steel was the first one of those real old ones that I heard.
Yeah, for me
I
it was the
think-
third one in. I bought, so it was Moving Pictures.
Yeah,
Then I was able to get the first record
yeah,
and Fly By Night.
yeah,
Then the next record I got was Signals because
Yeah.
it was the new one.
Right.
yeah.
And then it was after that at some point that I heard
Yeah.
Caress of Steel and
Yeah.
Hemispheres. Yeah.
And that song just made sense to me when I went back.
Oh
to
yeah,
it, like,
I
as-
mean
in an epic, and then like it does have that part where it gets real kind of
wonky.
wonky at the end. And the end,
So one of my favorite things about the Necromancer, it's a multi-part song.
And
they-
also
they-
interestingly enough about it is Bytor
yeah.
has become a good guy.
Oh yeah.
right on the
He's
previous.
changed his attitude
Yeah.
because on Fly By Night
This
he's
is-
the evil Bytor, and on this record he's saving us from
Yeah.
the
Right.
Necromancer.
Welcome to the Dungeons and Dragons
Yeah.
portion of the podcast where we talk
Right.
about how.
Well, I
that's-
always just loved that. I
That was a
remember.
character of the previous album.
Well, I always just loved that there was an interview with Rush at some point, on maybe a radio interview. I don't remember the interview,
Yeah.
but where some guy is like, asks, "How come Bytor is a good guy now?"
Right.
Like in this other record, and Neil goes, "Well, everybody's entitled to change their mind."
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, they totally
Yeah.
just take the wind
Yeah.
right out of
Yeah,
it.
and
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
like,
Right.
but that was also again early exposure to me to the idea of a concept thing. There
Yeah,
was a
yeah.
song that
Well,
was that long.
And-
Right.
But Brian,
Awesome.
also think about it. It's also a concept that's now, leapfrogging from one album to another.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
they're still talking
Theme,
about
yeah.
the stuff from the album last year.
Yeah.
Or well, it's the same year, but right,
I'm
you're
like-
like, this is a previous album character, right, and a
Yeah.
story, and we're expanding on it. You're like,
Yeah.
well, okay, that's crazy.
You're like,
for
so
me-
every album is sort of in a shared universe
Right.
of some
Yeah.
bizarre
yeah,
kind.
that's it, exactly, Brian. That's
So that was
right.
the first time they did that, and then they did it with Cygnus, and then they did it with like the
Yeah. And I always
Fear
remember
Trilogy.
going, wow,
Trilogy,
these guys are
right.
like gonna. These guys are later on. I realized they were totally like beating bands like Yes and whatnot at their
Yeah.
own game. Where
Oh, yeah.
oh, the concept. You guys are nerds. Like, don't
Right.
get us wrong.
Yeah.
But listen, motherfucker, we have a concept that's gone on for 24 years.
That's right. They were
You
going
guys
to
got 4 sides. That's
Right,
impressive.
that's cool.
Tales from
Right.
Topographic. What? We have this album cycle that you need to read Bible code
Right.
to
and it's in
understand.
reverse order.
Yeah, yeah.
chronologically,
You're like,
right.
come
yeah.
on. We have
No.
the Fear trilogy that's got 83 parts to a trilogy.
And
right?
then there's 2 songs on the radio on this. That-
Yeah.
you're-
And you know what's crazy is your friend's mom likes
Loves
this
to-
fucking
yeah,
song.
exactly.
So
So the
Unreal.
Necromancer,
Genius.
right, takes off from where Bytor and the Snow
Yeah.
Dog ended on the previous album, right?
Yeah.
You're like, okay, now we got a 2-part story. It's on 2 different albums. That's neat, and that song has many different parts and
Yeah.
cycles, and it really is.
also interesting to me about that song is how, much like we were talking about some of our other choices, how crazily atmospheric Alex's guitar is.
That
You
was
feel like you're like coming out of the fog in this
Yeah, yeah.
Tolkien world and seeing
Right.
it's insane how
Right, well,
atmospheric this song is.
And one of their longtime producer, Terry Brown, that's his second take. So he did
Right,
Fly by
right,
Night,
sure.
which was basically, from my Rush opinion, if you will,
No,
Fly by Night is half of that record is leftover early
First
days,
album. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then half of that album
is there
right
what they're doing
is we let
forward.
Neil write some songs and we're really excited.
Yeah.
So Caress of Steel is
That
really
one-
their first delve into this is a full band
Yeah.
with Alex, Neil, and Geddy.
Yeah,
So
yeah, definitely.
let's go.
and that
we'll-
was
right.
an early. That record
And-
has remained, much like Signals, has remained one of my favorites.
Oh,
Caress
yeah.
of
Oh
Steel. the
yeah,
whole
Brian
time.
and I have gone back and forth
and
with our
and
top.
I would argue that that was one of the songs that immediately why I knew that was the case when
Yeah.
I heard the record. Immediately I was
Yeah, yeah.
obsessed with the song, like trying to learn the. How am I ever going to learn all these lyrics?
right,
It's got
my-
14
Right.
chapters.
My friend Mike Wheeler, who I can't resist talking about on every podcast.
I know that's a strange thing I'm noticing.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because at the end of that,
We should
song,
have him on where he convinces me I like the Beach Boys.
Yeah, you know what? That would be fun.
I can do that.
I would love to see.
Him and I, yeah,
Right,
team up.
little mental
He's a
arm
Beach Boys
wrestle.
guy, yeah.
So
He
so
loves a lot of stuff that we don't like, and he's
Yeah.
like us, so
He's
constantly.
such a deep fan.
Yeah, he wants to get you on it, so he's been
And
trying to
he's
get
a-
me down the Beach Boys road for a long time, and then
He's also a
get-
huge Who fan.
yeah.
And so the very
I'd
end.
like to meet, because I've seen both of those bands.
We should
are-
ask Mike. I mean, with
yeah.
Christian's permission on his thing, we should have him on at some
Absolutely.
point.
Yeah.
Oh, he
definitely.
loves like a lot of stuff. Here's one that I don't know jack shit about. We all know what a big Stiff Little Fingers fan I am.
I do
I
know
don't know
that.
jack shit about the Jam.
Oh
Right.
yeah, so yeah, it's another.
And he's a Weller fanatic.
all right, then I would probably get.
And
I've gone to
so-
see Paul
Famous
Weller
of him.
twice
Yeah.
because Mike has said I have a
I
ticket
seen
and
him.
you're coming.
I saw him once with Dave
And he's
Files.
phenomenal. He's
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah, I saw him with Dave Files once at. Man, I want to say at the Channel, but I'm not 100% sure.
That would be very early.
Well, we could figure it out because I remember the record was called Peacock Suit,
Sure. So we could figure it out.
and we
Yeah.
could whenever that record came out, I went
Yeah.
with Files to see him, and he was terrific.
Nice.
And then Bruce Foxton from the Jam was also in Stiff Little Fingers,
That's right.
but for some reason I've never
Yeah.
got that. But anyway, back
Yeah.
to whatever.
I- so I
Jesus, see
bring
how
up
these
the-
things happen?
Right. I know.
It's that fast.
That's fine.
It's like fucking dementia.
Everything.
Literally, it makes sense to me though
This
while
is-
it's happening.
So we went to the RR Records today before.
And how
we did
awesome
this.
was Ron, right?
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
we had a
he
great
was-
time.
That's a
He
record
was-
store in Lowell. It's
Yeah.
a great record store.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Massachusetts.
definitely.
Check it out.
And my mind was like going all over the place. I was like, oh, yeah, I need to check Rush. And then I was like, oh,
Yeah,
wait,
yeah.
hey, what do they have for Mahavishnu? Oh, wait,
Yeah,
I also need ZZ Top, the Misfit, just,
Well, and just so you know, obviously this is a long-standing thing because you're so far away. You don't get up here except for podcasts.
yeah.
If you think of something you have to have before I can find it at Ron's and get
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
and obviously it'll become a. I get the feeling that we'll be visiting Ron again.
Oh, yeah.
At some
Well,
other
next
point
time
when
we
you
do this, I don't know if I can go there again.
Yeah, there's
So-
another kick-ass record store like a block away too,
Oh, okay.
in a mill. So that's yeah.
So
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
So
You've
bring,
been in there at
yeah.
the vinyl place.
Vinyl, yeah.
Awesome.
So Mike's involvement with Rush and the Necromancer is very, very tenuous, but
Yeah,
here's
I was
what
gonna
it is.
say I didn't know he's not a Rush guy, is he?
Not really, but at the end of the Necromancer, at the end of the song, the big piece, it's all Teenage Wasteland.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Yeah,
Those
yeah,
three
yeah.
chords and that build up as
He's
they
feeling
get into
it.
that and the solo. When you listen to that, and then you go back,
Yeah.
you go back to the
Yeah,
Who,
okay.
and you.
Yeah,
it-
that
I
makes
mean,
sense,
again,
yeah.
there's a million songs we could take apart
Yeah.
that are the same three chords.
Right.
But Rush, especially Neil, he's
Yeah.
a huge Keith Moon fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, Who
So
fanatic.
he's bringing in all
well,
this.
aren't they? They all are Who
Right,
nuts. You know?
and the three of those guys have now spent a year or more
Yeah.
touring together, talking
Yeah.
about just like what we're doing right
Yeah.
here: favorite songs, favorite artists, favorite stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a weird thing. Nobody would ever think of the Who and Rush in a million years unless we're talking about the drummer.
Yeah.
But there in that song at the very end is this climax that's basically. Out
Yeah, yeah.
there in the fields,
yeah.
you can hear
Yeah,
it
yeah,
in
yeah.
the song,
Yep.
Yeah.
and that tied those two bands together for me, and it was again nothing, groundbreaking, but
Yeah.
just one of those interesting little
Yeah, of
interconnections that you get when you go, I'm hearing this song, I'm hearing that song, I'm hearing people's influences as they're young men, right?
I felt a similar connection between, honestly, it's weird that you mentioned that. I never really thought of it that way, but I felt a very similar connection between Won't Get Fooled Again and Anthem.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so I get that.
Right, and Neil was certainly the driving force behind it. Not that the other, I mean, Geddy quotes Entwistle as a huge,
and they all love Pete Townsend.
Yeah, as a huge influence, right? So it's not like
Neil's whole thing with that R40 kit or whatever was based on the Keith Moon
based
kit.
on the Keith Moon kit, right?
Yeah.
They're big Who fans.
I get
they
it.
cover the Seeker on that cover.
That's It's my favorite song.
Oh, and Summertime Blues, which isn't necessarily.
That's probably the best cover on that cover. I think the Who and the Seeker.
The Seeker.
Yeah.
What else did they do?
I like
Summertime Blues.
Summertime Blues is pretty.
Which
good.
the Who also did.
My other favorite song off of that EP, it's a later Rush EP, Feedback. They just did a bunch of cover songs.
Yeah.
Their version, it's very straight.
Yeah.
But I like it. It's their version of Crossroads.
Oh yeah.
It's fun. I like hearing those
They didn't
guys
do anything.
It was cool to hear them do.
I just like them doing it.
Yeah, it was
Seeker,
cool to hear
right?
them.
It's cool to hear that, but I wanted them to do why isn't there a fucking Traffic cover or a
Genesis cover
or a
Watch
Yes
Over the Skies,
cover,
right?
But they didn't. They went the other way.
Yeah, I felt like they probably figured it would be too obvious. It's like why Fish never did Grateful Dead covers for years until
Right.
It's too obvious.
When
But
Jerry
then
Garcia died, they
Trey ended up playing with them. I bought that the shows with him.
Yeah.
What are they? Fare Thee Well shows.
Fairly well, yeah.
And again, my ever tenuous connection with the Dead gets bigger and bigger each year. As much as I, used to hate the Dead, more and more I go along. Although many people, I'm sure, would argue well, it's not even the Dead, dude. It's Trey Anastasio and whatever. But
right, it's not the Grateful Dead anymore.
So I think you're up.
So what's your next one, guy?
Oh, so I'm up.
Yep.
Brian brought us into the '80s, and Christian, you brought into the '80s, right?
Yeah, and you weren't really 80s, were you?
I love the '80s, and I love '80s Rush, but I'm going to go back into the '70s.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I'm in now.
I'm still back in here.
I'm totally in
and
for that, of
I want
course.
to talk about La Villa Strangiato.
Oh, yeah.
Because
I'll be honest, the only reason it's not on my list is it seemed too obvious. I was like, what a masterpiece.
It's an instrumental song. So you take Geddy Lee's voice, which is absolutely, the third rail of Rush. People love it, they hate it, they don't know what to do with it. But so you take Geddy's voice out of the equation. What is the band up to? What do they do? What are they going to play? So okay, Geddy's not going to sing. We're just going to.
I would argue that maybe not so much later, but in the early part of it, not like they were ever not so ridiculous that you could stand it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they ever were bad and got good.
Right.
But that was the first song where I noticed how much better being a loaded word, not the right word to use.
Sure.
Geddy's bass playing goes to a totally different level if he doesn't have to sing.
Yeah.
It's and be clear that when he's on the level where he's singing and playing, it's still so ridiculous I can't stand myself.
It's very ridiculous. But in this
But
song,
when he doesn't have to sing at all, he becomes completely a different animal because he's 100% about playing and he goes nuts. And that song is the first song where I ever noticed it.
Interesting that you say that, because what is it about the human voice that makes us all just, again, it's human, right? So we all connect to it and we're like, that's what that guy is doing. Whether he's playing a guitar, a bass, a drum, whatever, keyboards, if they're singing and doing something, they're singing primarily, right? Yeah. So here's La Villa Strangiato, you're like, there are three musicians, they're meeting on common ground. Alex is playing guitar, Neil Peart's playing drums, Geddy Lee's playing bass, ostensibly, and adding the keyboards, right?
Sure.
But there's no human voice.
Yeah.
It's just music. Here we go. Here's three guys meeting on common ground. What do we do? And they decided to create this, again, almost 9-minute multi-movement symphony built on everything that they'd absorbed. Again, I think
incapable of being overplayed either in on a record or whatever, or in a live setting.
Right.
I never am going to the bathroom during La Villa.
Right.
You're going to sit there. You're going to sit through every fucking minute of it. You're going to sit through the Ghost of the Aragon, the whole thing.
Again, we're talking about some very young musicians right now trying to go.
Oh yeah, and they're just breaking it off at a level that's ridiculous.
They've all got influences musically and outside of music, right? Art, literature.
So let's talk about what right before this came. So this song was on Hemispheres.
That's right.
Yeah. So they had already done 20, Caress 2112.
2112.
Farewell to
They're big
Kings.
epic. Farewell to Kings. Another, again, an epic and a more definitely the album that preceded Hemispheres is probably their most Genesis-like album. You know, there's a lot of acoustic guitar. There's a lot of. It's very English. I think they recorded most of it in Wales. Right. So they're over there. Anyway,
feels like a Genesis record.
But for Hemispheres, they're still looking at. They're still trying to capitalize or not capitalize. That's a terrible word. They're trying to double down and trying to make 2112 even better. They're like, we need to do an album.
Which I would argue they did. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I agree, Brian. I think that Hemispheres is them improving on 2112. They said, look, we'll do
2112 is. I'm sorry. Hemispheres is very much the culmination of the records before it distilled into what all of them are.
Right.
It's like what do you call it when it's if the records before it are the parts, it's better than the sum of its parts. It's like the parts of each of those records that are the best things into one amazing record.
By the time they're in Wales, again, for Hemispheres to record it, right? These guys have been on the road for like 4 years. So they're really, they're at the top of their game at that moment in time as musicians. And they're like, let's really challenge ourselves. Let's not even sing. Let's not even make a song. Never mind the lyrics. And Neil, you're great at lyrics and we're glad you're in the band because we didn't like, Alex and Geddy have both said, we don't like writing lyrics. So they're glad he's in the band and he's writing all the words.
He's stoked he doesn't have to.
Let's not even write any words here. Let's see where we go here. And
arguably it could have affected Neil's playing as well. I mean, he doesn't have to sing,
right?
But he didn't have to write a thing. He could every part of his energy regarding that song is focused on playing the
concentration is on the drums. For Geddy, the concentration is on the instruments, right? So they're all pulling that in, and they said, "What do we do? And let's create this thing." And this is on an album, by the way, where the first side of it is an almost 19-minute long. Sidelong one piece, right? It's just like 2112, but it's Hemispheres. It's a different idea. They've got a concept piece on side one, like, okay, we're going to go to side two. We're going to do some songs. And one of them, for the first time ever, we're not even going to sing on. Let's just be musicians. Again, they're in '79, they're announcing to the world, hey, listen, we can really play. And it took them a while to do it again, but at that moment I'm like, that song right there, it's my favorite instrumental of Rush, and it's a great song to play to people who don't know Rush.
That's the one that I use to open the door sometimes.
It's a great song to play to people to just play it and say, what do you think about this? And jazz fans will say, wow, this sounds like Mahavishnu Orchestra,
so ludicrous
like on
in
speed.
parts.
And there's other people saying, this sounds like Maiden, but they all went and listened to Genesis records. It's this weird meeting.
So much, it's bluesy. It's
one of my
it's
my
atmospheric.
favorite.
There's a lot of ambient parts.
It's
in the middle piece. The what is it? The Ghost of the Aragon. Am I gonna be a total nerd here? And the Ghost of the Aragon portion. There's 9. They have all these. They have 19 subsections of the song on the liner notes just for fun, right? And they name them all these ridiculous things. And in that section, it's so spare. There's barely. Neil Peart is playing a drum line that actually Brian and I have obsessed about for decades.
That drum,
to try to
I
get
remember
it
when I was
the
a
hi-hat.
teenager.
It's like a Steely Dan line. It's like it's so clean and perfect. You're like, if you don't get it, it's wrong.
That was one of those. I remember when I was a teenager, a couple of my drummer friends. That was like the holy grail drum beat.
That's right.
If you could learn that drum beat,
you
were the fucking.
I love the
and
part
then all those
in
ambient guitar swells.
I love the part in the documentary.
And then Geddy's
where,
got just Moog bass notes, and it's so spare compared to the chaos of some of that
it's
song.
so ambient and
what a lot of balls to just pull that song off to say we're going to even take it back and reduce it to its minimum. And still impress you.
I love the part
song.
in the documentary where I think would it be On the Lighted Stage or whatever, I think. Where Mike Portnoy talks about that. And he goes, and this became the measure of in high school of whether or not you could play an instrument. I can fucking play YYZ. Can you play La Villa Strangiato?
That's right. It was the next level.
It was it made the shit that they did that boggled your mind. You were like, oh, those are just fucking regular songs.
It was a validation
Holy
song, wasn't it?
Shit. What the fuck? Are you fucking kidding me with this band?
Is La Villa and YYZ to and I don't mean this in any way a lesser degree, but YYZ, which is another instrumental song from Moving Pictures.
Which is also ludicrous.
Right, and La Villa, weren't they validations to the things that you thought of as a fan? You're like, this band can play rings around everyone else.
Yeah.
And here's a validation song.
Yeah.
Geddy says, I'm not even going to sing. Check it out.
And the whole idea of the band at that time, when I first heard La Villa, was about this to me of. It's funny to look back on it that decades ago, right? But at the time, La Villa, when I first heard it, I did not understand that you could fucking play instruments like that at all. Like I did not understand that.
Yeah.
It was the pinnacle of musicianship.
That you could,
Certainly,
it was
I hadn't
absolutely
heard
at
anybody.
that point in time. That was the best musicianship I had ever heard on a rock record in my.
And no slight against Rush. I wasn't a jazz fan at that point when I heard that
See,
song.
and I was already a jazz guy. That actually, to be really pretentious about it, I think at the time I was like, "Oh, these guys are like jazz fucking players. That's how good they are."
And
like holy shit.
Did you guys first hear that on Hemispheres? Or did
Yeah,
you hear it on
La
Exit?
Villa?
All right, so you didn't hear it.
No, Exit, stage left.
Because that's where I first heard it.
Yep,
and then
for sure.
And it has that weird part where he like screams something at the end of it.
Right, Geddy's on the live version in Exit. Right.
Oh yeah, with the translation in there.
Yeah.
First of all, Alex takes the electric instead of the nylon acoustic for the intro, which makes it a completely different song.
Yeah, it makes it really
it just
live,
announces this right, and then Geddy does some ad lib vocals in the middle of it. So that version is its own indelible thing, and it's different to me because.
Hey, right?
Remember, do you guys know that they got sued for that song?
For La Villa?
Yeah,
No.
they got legally sued
Really?
by the dun 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 dun. Everybody knows that little riff because they remember watching Warner Brothers cartoons in the 30s.
Rat-tat-toodle-in a day.
Right. All that stuff was from a song called Powerhouse.
Oh, okay.
And that dun 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 that was very.
It's in the Mask.
Yeah.
It's generic big band music for any.
But the guy who wrote it, it was still a copyrighted song, and it had been around for a while. They settled out of court. It was never anything big, and
the song
didn't stop the song from becoming what it was.
But
and I had no. But again, thinking about it as a kid. I'm like, I remember watching all those old Warner Brothers cartoons.
I would say at the time that I heard
it, I kind of pulled it in. I'm like, those guys are watching the cartoons too, and of course they were, right? And that's where and they would tell you themselves.
What else are you going to watch in a fucking Holiday Inn in Akron when you're on tour and nobody's
Alex and Geddy and Neil would tell you themselves, we pulled that right from that, and we put it in the song because it was fun.
I would say that song, in terms of like Rush songs, was profound. The effect it had on me, actually. I was already a fan and understood kind of what the band was about at that point, but that was a profound moment where I.
Well, think about it, Brian. We're Rush fans from in the 80s looking back at Hemispheres, and here's the first Rush song that we've ever heard where, besides YYZ, you had Moving Pictures, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, Moving Pictures was the first instrumental song. But La Villa Stranciato hit me in a different way. Because I think maybe because it's
why?
Because
YYZ is an instrumental, but it's still a rock song.
And it's tight, and it's verse chorus too.
It's almost like a cat. That could almost just be on the radio.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I mean, and it is on. It's on classic rock radio all the time.
It's very composed, whereas La
which is another amazing thing. Is much like Frankenstein. It's one of the few rock instrumentals that is in regular rotation on a classic
People
station.
sing along to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's La Villa was a profound thing where I suddenly was like, kind of understood the band at a different level in a way. Like, oh my God, they could do that too. Like,
I'd suggest to the listener too, if you want to watch a version of this, go on YouTube and search for La Villa Strangiato Pink Pop.
The Pink Pop Festival,
And it's from 1978. And it's amazing.
That is a great
version of it. Alex particularly is just ripping it apart.
So you can kind of see what we mean by.
You could probably strip it down to like what? Rush, Villa, Villa, Pink, Pink, and that'll get you there. YouTube.
So what's your next one here, Brian?
Is it me?
Brian, hit us up.
All right.
What do you got?
So my next one is from Grace Under Pressure.
Nice.
Great album.
And it's The Enemy Within.
Oh.
Okay.
Much like Subdivisions. This song was, I was like, oh, this comes out of my brain.
Yeah.
This is me.
Yeah.
You know, every muscle tense, to fence the enemy within, you know? Like, you're your own worst enemy, like, and how I really was, and how being a picked on nerd was was about me. It was about, you know, wow, you know, it was as profound as Subdivisions was for me, that song. And it's so dark. Yeah. The whole record is dark and spooky, but that song is, yeah, wow, yeah.
I wonder, too, with these songs, too, when we think about our favorite ones, especially these ones thematically, lyrically, if we were much older and we had got into Rush around 2112, did anything on those records speak to, like, you know, like nothing on there, like...
What I always think is funny is people like Dave Monaghan, our friend Dave Monaghan, who's probably brought up on the last podcast too. I mean, he's kind of a Mike Wheeler figure, right? He's got to come in all the time.
We're gonna bring up the same.
He always tells me the reason he can't dig Rush is because it's too bright, and it's too positive. And I'm like, dude, I've got a laundry list of dark ass songs that'll make you want to hang yourself. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah.
And that's one of them. That song is so real and and it's such the guitar part is so the bass line is so funky, but the guitar part is so Andy Gill, so Gang of Four, so angular, and Neil is so it makes me want to throw Guy through this fucking window right now. I'm serious. Holy shit. The live version of it from the Grace Under Pressure concert, too, is I will fucking murder everybody in this house for no reason.
I'm going to get into, you know, the musician side of that, but the bridge of that song is my absolute favorite part. And it's some of Neil's, again, most honest and really heartbreaking lyrics. When you think about Subdivisions, and again, a song we talked about just a little while ago, and how personal that is. Because if you listen to that, and you can, if you weren't a young woman or a young man in the 80s and going through that, if you were going through anything ever in your life, no matter how old or young you are, emotional, if there was anything emotional where you didn't feel quite like you fit in, Subdivision speaks to you. But Enemy Within, it narrows the focus a lot.
Oh yeah,
and it gets a little too personal. Yeah, and that's where a lot of people check out. I know a lot of Rush fans who don't like that record, and it gets a little too personal.
I think of it this way a lot.
One of the songs on that album, they're talking about a friend of theirs who died, and they're going back in time and thinking about stuff that they did with him.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
it's a hard song to listen to, even if you don't know
the video is hard
character.
to watch at the end.
The video is difficult, but the song itself. So in The Enemy Within, that bridge, right? And I'm gonna embarrass myself, but I'm like, what's the bridge? I'm thinking about to you. Is it movement or is it action?
Is it contact or just reaction?
And you revolution.
Just resistance. Is it living or just existence?
Is it living or just existence? Yeah, you. And then
takes a little more.
Getty goes back into he goes back into 1974 and goes, yeah, you.
Right.
It takes a little more persistence to get up and go the distance. I mean, for me, I'm reduced to tears when I'm a 14-year-old boy, right? In my bedroom, I'm like, these guys get it. Why doesn't anybody, no other song, I'm listening to songs, I'm like, goodbye, Ruby Tuesday. I'm like, I don't know what that means because this guy's talking about my bedroom right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Brian, Enemy Within.
Enemy Within is a masterpiece. Yeah, it's got the, that lyric is one that I pulled apart endlessly for years. Yeah. Just, it's so.
I mean, this is absolutely, you know.
And the music on that one, that record, Grace Under Pressure, is
brilliant. So good.
Yeah, like we were saying, it's one of the synth albums, but it's so fucking dark.
So dark and so heavy.
Playing, like that guitar.
And Alex is almost. It's almost like you can feel the. You know, now everybody knows too because of the documentary and all that about how he was really, really digging his heels in against some of that synth stuff.
Yeah.
And you can fucking hear the anger in those guitar parts. It's very angular. Yeah. It reminds me a lot of like Andy Gill from Gang of Four or the Police, you know, or any of those guys where it's what's his fucking name from the Police?
Andy Summers.
Andy Summers. And
one of my favorite guitarists.
Yeah, and it's really angry and angular and jarring and heavy and kind of scary.
And it has all that like flandrin chorus on it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it has this weird new wave feel,
Right.
but it still maintains that darkness and
Right.
it creates this atmosphere.
If you try to play, if you're a guitar player and you try to play any song off that album, you'll fail instantly.
Yeah, you're not going to get the.
There's so many intricate and interesting things, and again,
Yep, and it just
I've
really.
said this again before, but Alex makes it sound like a breeze.
Yeah.
And in that record, it's 1984. That's that is such a
Yeah, that's
an
That record
important
is-
year in history. But looking back, I was waiting for like Brian and maybe you, Christian. I was waiting for that album to come out.
I feel like if that had been the one I heard before, that would have been probably my favorite. Rush.
Yeah,
Like
and
before Signals.
Before Signals, if I'd heard Grace Under Pressure first, that would be my
that would have been
touchstone,
it.
and
Yeah,
everything
of
would
course.
come before and after.
And there's that song has always been like a sort of an analogy or
Yeah.
whatever to Subdivisions for
Yeah.
me. Another
Yeah.
one of those songs that hit me. It's such a personal.
Brian, I never
level
thought
that-
about it. But Subdivisions to Enemy Within, there's a there's a bridge
like a
there.
correlation
and
of
it's a
some
sharper
kind.
focus.
Yeah,
you know?
and it's the first one indulged us all. Subdivisions
Yeah.
indulged the nerd in you in. It's look at the world around you and how it slaps you around.
Right.
And then the other song is, well, what the fuck are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
Very well said.
Yeah.
Well
And
put.
and the other song on the record that kind of goes in there's a little three-way treater there for me is also Between the Wheels.
Yeah.
It's part of that trilogy of those three songs
Yeah.
too, where you.
So that was on my list.
When you get-
literally while we were talking about this
Is while you
2 minutes ago, I was like, I'm going to actually take that off because
and then Between the Wheels
I'm
is
thinking of
after
another-
you
yeah.
decide what the fuck you're going to do about it.
But that
if
one
you
is-
get your ass handed to you, this is what that will be like.
yeah.
And then where you got to return full circle back to Subdivisions and go back into the Enemy Within to go. But are you going to get up again or what? Are you
Right.
fucking done? Or are
Yeah.
you going to get up? It was all this thing about not letting it beat you, but then it's going to.
Yeah.
And you're going to know how the rabbit feels going under the speeding wheels.
That's right.
It's like.
Yeah. And that one I had, I think, mainly because of the guitar solo in that song.
And
It's
I mean,
just-
yeah, and
ridiculous.
and that lyric too, just bright images flashing by like windshields towards a
That-
fly. Holy shit.
Again, for non-Rush fans, Grace Under Pressure, just put it on.
What a
and
masterpiece!
And
It's
let
great.
it
Yeah.
come over you, because
So
that song Between the Wheels that you're just talking about. Brian,
yeah, which seeing
It's-
live was a fucking holy grail moment
Yeah.
for me. Like
it's so frenetic.
Yeah.
You can't believe that a band can play that fast and that passionate about something and still have a lot of emotion there.
Yeah.
Like it should just be a fast,
Yeah.
like pseudo pop metal rock song.
Right.
But it's absolutely, again, from a fan's point of view, I'm completely biased, but it is absolutely not that. There's so much emotion in that song.
yeah. No, it's fucking brilliant. So yeah,
Flies out
that
of
was
the
my.
speakers. What do you got,
next one
Christian?
we
Number
got-
3.
Yeah,
So
what
my
do you
number
got?
3 is off of 2112, and it's but the one I fell in love was from All the World's a Stage, and that's Something from Nothing,
Oh yeah,
and that's
amazing.
just the riff in that,
yeah.
and the lyrics. I don't agree with. That was when Neil was reading. What,
Ayn Rand.
Yeah, all the
Ayn
time.
Rand.
And when that stuff's kind of corny and
Yeah,
Yeah,
He,
but-
he was inspired by something
yeah.
passionate, and
Yeah.
he got
He
the
was
lead
20 or- yeah,
he got the lead singer
But I
on
also-
board.
yeah,
Yeah, and I also do appreciate the fact that even now, parts of the philosophy of it hold up in the
Oh,
sense
yeah,
of like,
definitely. Yeah.
where it's again with the Rush ethos we were just talking about with the other thing. Like, okay, your life's gonna kick your ass. You're gonna
Yeah.
be the little nerd. You're gonna be the little loser.
Yeah.
The fuck are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
That song has an element of that. None of the shit is gonna happen with this sleep in your eyes.
Right.
Wake the
Yeah.
fuck up. If you want
Yeah.
to make something out of it, do it. But
Yeah.
here's.
Yeah.
And again, I would argue a very dark.
Yeah.
People, it's too bright. Really? Have you heard this one?
Yeah.
Rush was
yeah.
I mean
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I mean Rush was singing a lot about their own ethos
Yeah.
during their whole especially the early career from like
And the riff to
75
me
to
is
85, right?
interestingly it's brutal and it's really like new wave of British heavy metal.
Yeah.
That riff. Holy
Yeah.
shit! What a monster.
And the live one is just like
The live
Yeah.
one is.
So let's I mean
Well, All the World's a
It's so
Stage. We all
tight.
agree is the live record,
yeah.
right?
well, I don't know if we agree about that.
Well, I'm asking. Yeah, do
I
we?
agree.
That's mine. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
me too. Yeah, okay, all right.
Again, it's the one with barely any overdubs. It's really raw.
It's kind of like Kiss Alive, except the reason you feel like you're there isn't because of the overdubs. It's because it's fucking really that good.
Right.
There's some shit on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That version of Something for Nothing is really really special.
Yeah.
Again, the band really come alive on
Yeah.
that. And if you listen to the studio version on 2112, it's not the same.
No, it's not.
No.
It's actually it's not watered down,
Right.
but it's a little too sterile.
Yeah.
So the live
Well, it's
version really
produced.
makes you feel it.
It's
And to me, that song is early Rush. That's the first
epitome
album,
of-
and maybe Neil's introduction. It's leftover Fly By Night Rush album.
Yeah.
There's a
It's leftover fly by.
it's those heavy riffs,
it's got the heavy riffs, and we're like, this is just a statement song. It's got one idea, and we're gonna pummel it through in 3.5 minutes.
Yeah.
But for me, 2112, the whole first side of 2112, I don't really listen to.
Yeah. Yeah, I always said that because I have a couple of friends who 2112 is their favorite record.
Absolutely.
Sure, yeah.
I always say
It's huge.
that could never be my favorite record because it has that song, The Twilight Zone, on it.
Na
So,
na
and
na
that's-
na na na.
And that was another idea for an
Tears.
episode. Yeah, Tears.
You know what's
too.
crazy about the
But-
Twilight
but-
Zone is that the reason that I hate the song. Well, I don't hate. That's a strong
Right,
word.
yeah.
The reason it's not Tai Shan. I don't hate it. The reason I don't like the song is because the fucking lyric is atrociously bad.
Yeah.
You've seen a giant boy? Go fuck yourself. You got.
But
I
that-
know the other records, dummy. I know how good of the lyricist you are. What are you
And
doing?
here's the thing: you think about Fly By Night, and you think about two albums, not one album, two
Right.
albums later, 2112.
And there's the,
Neil put all his writing into 2112, and then again we had leftover Rush and Fly By
It's
Night
just the
songs.
lyric is bad.
So, but
right.
those two albums are really good. Rush
Yeah,
and Fly By
yeah.
Night are good in their own way.
Oh, they're
and
fucking
so
great.
Something for Nothing, if it's on Fly By Night or if it's on Rush, I love it.
Yeah.
And if it's on 2112, I
You're
do.
right. Wow.
And Lessons, right?
Oh,
That's
yeah,
an
Lessons,
early
yeah.
song.
Yeah.
That's an awesome
and,
song.
and I love
Yeah,
that
that's a
song.
good song, yeah.
And then I don't care about anything else.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I really don't.
I love
Yeah.
In the End from Fly By Night. That's on.
In the end, now that's
oh.
an early song,
Yeah.
right? That's not a Neil. Now Neil writes the lyrics, but
Yeah.
that's an early song. You
Yeah.
can tell that that's an
Yeah.
early song for those guys, and it's
It's riffy.
Like, oh, but
Yeah.
here again.
right.
Here again. Yeah. So what's your
What do you got
one?
next?
I'm up. I got to talk about Freeze.
Oh yeah, wow. So you're going really
one,
modern.
no one but Rush fans are going to know about the song Freeze because
Yeah.
it's from Vapor Trails. That came
Yeah.
out in 2002. Nobody knows about that record. It was
Well, I mean,
People didn't love. People hated the production on that one. Again.
yeah, and then you know what? They
redid
redid it, and it was still.
Yeah, it's still.
That record is awesome.
Yeah.
I heard the issues people had with the first
That's
one.
right.
It was like
Yeah.
clipping and stuff like
Right.
that on some of it, but you know
It
what?
did.
It didn't bother me.
No.
Yeah.
I was
And-
okay with it. Whatever.
Yeah.
I
think it's
write.
a good record.
Didn't
Yeah.
ruin it for me.
I
think
write
that
and
record's
arrange
awesome.
music, and so of course I heard the problems
Yeah.
with it. I could hear them technically.
The remaster's
But-
good.
Yeah, and the remaster got ruined for me again, ironically, on a Rush forum.
Wow.
I was
you
reading
can't
a
go
reading a
on that
forum
shit.
about the remaster when it came out. Again, the song the song I'll get to, but the album in itself had production problems from a technical standpoint.
Right.
Stuff that most people wouldn't notice. But technical fans and technical people would notice it, and they went about and Rush many years later totally stripped the album back and remixed it, remastered it, tried to get it better. And again, I was a huge Rush fan and always have been. I was on a forum at the time reading about it, and somebody mentioned something about the remaster, and they said, "Oh, this particular thing is irksome because they did this to the production."
Right.
And now that's all I can hear.
Right.
And when I read that and went and listened to it, that was all I could hear.
Yeah,
and I'm
so
not going to
fuck
mention
it.
it here because I will ruin that record for half the audience or
Right.
anybody who's listening. So the original Vapor Trails, that's the album to get.
Yeah.
It's noisy. It clips.
Yeah.
It's awful in some ways. Don't even worry about that.
Yeah.
When good music is there, it
there.
rises above.
Yeah.
And of all the songs on that album, Freeze is the song that almost reduces me to tears every time I hear it. And that sounds really, wow, that's kind of melodramatic.
Yeah.
But the song has a lot of emotion to me. And again, where they were as a band. They'd broken up for 5 years because of tragedies in band members' lives, and maybe the band was never going to come back.
Right.
So for Rush fans like me that have been there since I was 10 years old, or Brian that's been there from 10 years old, or for Christian that's been there for 10 years old, you're like, if you really care about a band, they've been with you all this time, you're like, wow, I can't believe it. I'm in my 30s and this band might be done.
Yeah.
So this album comes out and it drops and you listen to it, and it's got lots of songs on it. It's like, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 songs. There's a lot of music.
11?
In 70s, in the 70s or the 80s, it would have been a double album. Right.
Yeah,
So,
it's a really good record. And
Yeah.
it's one that I don't own. I don't have a vinyl copy of it, and I wish I did, because I'd love to hear what that sounds like on the vinyl
I'll
record.
be that guy. It sounds great on.
Yeah, fuck yourself. How about that? All right. No, because I don't have one, you know, and
No, it does. It sounds great on vinyl, but
that's if I saw one of those in a store, I would buy it on spec. I wouldn't even look at the price tag. Honestly,
it wouldn't
I would just
matter,
buy it.
right? And you'd be wise in doing that.
I did it today with that first pressing of the Mob Rules by Black Sabbath.
Black Sabbath
I
record,
put it
right.
away 3 times, and then I'm like, am I fucking stupid? I'm gonna have to
Why?
go home and call Ron and go tomorrow morning, go pull that record for me,
Because I have
I'm
to
just
have
gonna buy it
Yeah.
because
This is.
that record is one that I would love to hear on vinyl. It sounds amazing.
And you know what? The production problems are still there, but on vinyl, as you know, it's a different medium. It does its own thing. But Freeze is one of those songs that, Rush Freeze. Google it.
Yeah.
Have fun. Go to YouTube. Alex Lifeson, the guitar player, he basically barely plays anything for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 minutes in that song, except for dragging his pick across the strings angrily while he's just making noise. He's not even fretting or playing chords. He's doing like harmonics or something like that. He's just making this angry noise because this song is that powerful.
Yeah.
And Neil is, his drums are coming up, and Geddy's got all these multi-track vocals that a lot of fans at the time hated, but he's like, I can't sing it by myself as a solo vocal. It's got to be this gang vocal. So there's this gang vocal idea coming on the song, and it's just from the second it starts till the second it ends, it's frenetic. It's so powerful. There's this, Neil plays really straight during the song. He plays this very
which is
straight,
for people that might not be
it's
fans
atypical,
or whatever, is very atypical of Neil for anything to be straight at all.
He's playing this really straight beat at some points while the rest of the band is kind of off time and off kilter. And anyway, you just listen to the song and you'll either like it or you'll hate it. But at the very end of the song, the last couple minutes, it is so apocalyptic. And that's the only word that I can think of. The whole band, you can hear that they're in a room, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna get emotional right here. That song brings me to a place with that band that very few songs do. I have a list, like everybody does who likes music. They have lists. I have a list of songs that will reduce me. That's one of these songs. It's awesome, it's buried at the very end of the album.
I'll have to
and it's not. You just don't get to it.
I love that song.
But if you've been caught by that song, like I have, obviously I'm emotional right now. If you've been caught by the song, it'll never let you go.
All right, I'll have to.
I like it.
I love it.
I mean, I love that whole record, and I liked it from go.
Yeah.
So
I
a lot
did
of
too.
fans that
I
were
did
mad
too.
about it and this and that and the other.
I liked it. I didn't give it that much time though. So
It's really good.
Brian,
you know
I was
what?
so happy that it was that album.
Yeah, it's,
After
you know
all
what?
that time away,
It isn't. It very. To be honest, that record fits in very much for me with the Grace Under Pressures and the, It's
you know,
one of
those pivotal
records
albums
for me,
where maybe the band is gonna
it's a little darker
end or
and
not.
a little weirder and
Sure.
a little bit more real and kind of in your grill and I love that record.
Yep. What do you got, Brian?
I got next
What's
is
up?
I went to Hold Your Fire, and the song is Open Secrets.
Oh yeah.
Because I think it might be Alex's best fucking guitar solo of every solo on everywhere done. Period. I think that might be the one. It's like you were just saying about getting emotional.
And now I have to cross a song off my list.
The song makes me
That's
emotional.
one of my dude.
So
That
is that the first one?
that was my last song.
All right.
So I'll go to another one. But
that
yeah,
song
dude,
is
Brian.
wow. Yeah, it's Masterpiece doesn't even cover it. It might be their best song. It's easily a top 3 Rush song of all time for me.
Yeah.
And it easily, if I had the time to think about it to make the call, it easily is quite possibly the one. You know, it's that guitar solo is. I mean, I'm not a guitarist.
Yeah.
But that guitar solo is
Brian,
one of the most emotive things I've ever heard any human being ever fucking conjure out of a guitar. Ever. Period. I know, like, guys, Clapton's and those guys, right? Alex Lifeson is the fucking Mac. That solo is... I want to cry about it right now.
No, right.
It's insane.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we feel like we're all in our cups here, but seriously, that solo is one of those joyous, uplifting,
bangs it out.
almost like frightening moments. You're like, I can't listen to this. This is going to be too much
hurtful.
for me to handle.
It's almost too
that song's
hurtful,
great. Isn't it kind of like a... Now, that album came out in 87, so...
Yep.
In 87, some of the other things that I was listening to, one of the top bands I was listening to in 87, along with Rush, was Level 42.
Yeah, sure.
So
Mark
this song came out, and Geddy Lee, he's the consummate bass player.
Right.
He's got this to me, Mark King, who's the bass player for Level 42, this very Mark King bass line. And here's Hold Your Fire, and it's all technical. It's produced, right?
Yeah.
And there's lots of keyboards and guitar and drum. It's lots going on. It's really a lot to take in. But I'm hearing all of this pop stuff, like Level 42, who is a very produced band and very technical.
Yeah, different
but
kind
much
of
more pop, right? And I'm hearing all that in the Rush album, and I'm like, what is going on? And when you read, it was hard to get information, pre-internet, right?
Then,
you buy magazines and stuff like that. I'd buy magazines and you'd read, anything I could get on Rush. I would beg my parents, please, can I buy a Circus magazine? And I'd get it home, and it'd be about the, Hold Your Fire.
That was wicked.
About the
Christopher
tour.
Walken.
Yeah.
Please, Mom.
Right.
Can I buy a Circus magazine?
Right. You understand. You gotta read.
Alex Lifeson's inside.
Right.
Read this section. Made me really interested in Rush.
Doris bass pedals.
Right. So I'm reading about it, and Geddy and Alex and Neil are in there all going about, well, we love listening to Talking Heads and Level 42, and
those guys turned me into Ultravox.
Right. And the Fix and the Police, and I'm like, oh, so they're listening to what? So they are currently consuming music,
same
like I am, and they're like, but
Heads,
unlike you guys, you young guys, we're making music while we're consuming it, but we're listening to what you're listening to. When we hear The Edge and we hear you too, so do you guys. But then we're going to make music and respond to it. Right? So I'm like, oh, so it's not weird that Level 42 is quote unquote in there when I hear this song Open Secrets. Okay.
No.
Wow.
I didn't think it was weird. I just was
I thought these guys were my friends, right? At
that
of course.
Point,
I'm like, they're listening to music with me. They're just so awesome and a little bit older. They can make records about it.
And a
I can't
continent away.
Now I want to make
not
records.
A continent, but
right now I want to make records
other end
about
of
it
our
too.
continent.
But so I mean that obviously started my long ago.
Yeah,
my
so that
love,
was
love of
mine.
making
What do you
music,
got?
but
What's
Open
yours?
Secrets, fantastic song.
Yeah, great. One of my favorites. I love that record.
Yeah.
That record.
Hold Your Fire.
Badass. Yeah, it's a master. People hate on it, but I think it's
They do.
Yeah.
They're like,
Tai Shan sucks.
That's one song from
whatever.
that.
Yeah, and I hate it, but that record is
Right.
prime mover.
Can I ask you?
Ouch.
Can I ask you about Tai Shan?
Yeah.
Isn't that a Rush song?
Yes.
Right. It's only for
I
them.
don't like it.
Available Light. That's only
Well,
for them.
no, it's only for Neil.
Oh, so you'll go even further. It's
Well,
like,
Geddy says it. That I think this song, the reason the song is a failure is because it was a personal thing for Neil.
right.
So
And we
at the
indulged
time
him?
it was a thing, but he talks about it in the documentary, and it's like, I'm just really bored by it, and it seems a little whatever, but that said, so it's not a perfect album.
Yeah.
But it's a badass record. Prime mover. Ouch. Turn the page.
Right. It seems like excess of the
Force
album
10.
Force 10.
of the album that preceded it, Power Windows.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a little poppier.
Yeah.
They put Amy Mann on there and whatnot, and but it sounds amazing. that drum kit at that time, those Ludwigs, man, ouch! It's things. The
They
drums sounded like $1 million, which was amazing considering that the drums before the famous Tamas, right? What you're like, he's going to a new company and everything, and then the drums just sound like $1 bazillion, and they're gorgeous. Those pink ones, the white ones with the pink in them.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what do you got?
I'm gonna take us back to a place where we're wearing white robes, and there's an atmosphere that's being created, and we're gonna start dining on honeydew.
Oh yeah.
And, the song is Xanadu.
Xanadu. Oh, gross
that's
shit.
my. And that was another one I heard.
Kid, it's the
live
milk of paradise.
The whole suite of like the tree, the Bruins Band, the trees, Xanadu
It's,
from
Exit Stage Left, yeah.
Is just.
And the reason it's brilliant is because it's La Villa with the vocals.
Yeah.
That's
So they're like, oh, you like how well we can play without the vocals?
Right.
Here's what happens when we do that, and I'll tell you a fucking story.
Right.
How about
and
that?
the lyrics are pretty ridiculous in that song.
right. A
So
year and a half
good.
before, we're going to record La Villa Strangiato, but we're going to sing about Kubla Khan.
I would argue that it's again, that's right up there for me. It's unkillable.
Yeah.
If those guys are going to play it, I'm not going to the bathroom. I'm not going to get a beer.
Never.
I'm going to sit and watch it.
That's a heavy song.
Super heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's proto metal for sure.
Yeah.
It's
Better than Cygnus?
different vibe. I think. I don't know.
It's a different vibe.
Tough.
man.
As far as long songs go, for me, the first part, Xanadu is a better song.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a better
Cygnus
song.
is a lot of fun, and I love
it's
it.
fun, right?
Yeah.
But that, better piece of
Xanadu
music.
is one of my favorite songs from that.
And it builds, so like just the volume when he's doing that.
I love the, so many Rush songs do, the journey from the beginning to the end of it. You feel like you went somewhere after, and it takes it out of you.
Right.
And that one, that one is
and,
like.
And there's no fade out on that song either.
No.
It takes it right out of you.
They ended almost like classically.
Oh yeah, it does. Oh yeah, you're right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a very
it sounds like
classical.
Holst.
Yeah.
It's a very classical outro.
Yeah.
It sounds like The
Here We Are.
Planets by Holst.
It's the end of this movement.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, that song really does. It's a sneaky one because it starts very atmospheric and very ambient, which is a piece that, again, a lot of people who don't know Rush intimately miss the whole ambient.
Yeah.
And I mean that literally and figuratively, the whole ambient piece of Rush, where Alex is doing
huge.
volume swells, where Geddy's just holding a pedal note,
Like now
where
that-
Neil is standing up and he's
that
he's
it's
hitting
over,
bells,
if Neil
right?
and Neil is
We're
out,
just
if
doing
those guys
it's
make
almost
a
like
record of
Vangelis.
that, I'm in.
It's like Mike Oldfield.
Yeah.
It's like Jean-Michel Jarre. There's these very ambient, quiet, and we'll take the time in this band and spend 3, 4, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, with the birds chirping and everything behind it? That's
right.
fucking awesome.
Field recordings.
God
You're
damn.
like, come on, man. Like even Genesis didn't do field recordings.
Yeah,
You're like,
no, and that-
Yes
that-
did. Yes did, to their credit.
Yeah.
But Genesis, they're like, look, we're trying to
Right.
take
That-
all of this in,
Yeah.
and they were really trying to build emotion and atmosphere, and some of that.
I'll also
Xanadu
say that.
has that in spades. I
Oh,
love
yeah,
the
it's
whole
loaded with
the
it.
first, I can't not listen to the whole song.
Yeah.
If I grab one, maybe 10, 15 seconds of it, and it comes up on a playlist or something,
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah,
I'm in
yeah.
it to
I'll
win
also
it.
say
right?
that the
I have to
live
listen to the whole
version of it that we're talking about, right?
thing. From Exit Stage Left.
Yeah.
Yeah, the live version of it from Exit Stage Left. I'll say that the infamous, to people that know the song, if you don't know the song, you wouldn't know. The infamous single snare hit separating the
Yeah.
that not only the placement of the hit, and we could talk about feel and all that for hours,
Right.
but the physical sound of the drum on that live recording, to have the drum tuned the way it's tuned on purpose and recorded
All
the
of
way
that.
it's recorded
All
on
of
purpose
that,
to make
right.
that sound
Yeah.
was one of the earliest things when I heard that Exit Stage Left record as a kid coming up to learning to play the drums.
Yeah.
Was one of the earliest points of reference for me of the fact that it mattered how you fucking tuned a drum.
Yeah.
Because in taking school band as a kid, you cranked the things until it pretty much sounded the same as the guy next to you in the snare line.
Right.
And I remember that the sound of that snare drum as a kid having a massive, massive impact on me. Like, why does that snare drum sound that way in a live situation?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
was the first time it was like the Magic School Bus. Like I was like, he made that drum sound like that on purpose? Like on what? That I guess in the idea of a room of that size, in literally complete silence, except for that pop.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, yeah. So strangely enough, that song, one of the moments of it is that moment to me is a huge Rush moment for me.
Nice. So you got one more, guy.
I got one more, and it's probably not what you expect. No, because it's going to be, again, I'm going to pick obscure songs. I mean, we could have just picked Rush hits tonight,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If each one of us picked,
My last one's going to be a hit.
So if we each picked, a Rush hit and did our top 5 favorite Rush hits,
Yeah.
it would have been the same conversation because
exactly.
some of those songs.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I love Tom Sawyer and I could dissect it
Yeah.
forever. Same with Subdivisions, Closer
Right.
to the Heart. There's a lot of songs that people would know about Rush.
Right.
But for this indulgent podcast,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to say I'm gonna go back to 1994
Ooh, good. That's
and think about what I was listening to
a rich vein.
when it comes from Rush. And they put out an album called Counterparts.
Master.
That again, they changed things up that year.
Yeah.
And Rush fans know that.
Yeah.
They went away from Rupert Hine, who I talked about earlier, who was producing the Fix and other bands,
Fix,
but certainly had a different take on things. And they went with Kevin Shirley, who
The
did
caveman.
yeah, and he definitely brought rock, quote unquote,
Who else did he work with before
back
that?
to Rush.
British metal
Like
stuff.
Queensryche or something? Or no,
Yeah, I
but-
think he
That
worked-
sounds right.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Yeah, and I believe, didn't he also have something to do with Queen at some point?
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
I
I remember it was a new thing, though. Totally different sound.
yeah. So
Right.
at
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
time,
for
I knew
Rush,
everything.
you're
I
like,
knew.
wow.
I wanted to find out about their new producer.
Yeah.
So at the time, I knew, but it's lost to history. But the record remains, and it's an uneven record. There's half of that record I'm not a fan of. Not a big fan. Won't
I would
listen
agree.
won't listen to those songs again.
Right.
But part of what really appealed to me about that record was Geddy Lee being the great bass player that he is. He dove into a couple of songs, and one of them was Alien Shore.
Yeah.
And on that song, and this is going to sound strange, but again, if you're a guitar player, bass player, or just a fan of music, listen to it.
Right.
Give it, a couple minutes, if you can. His bass line, if you know how to dial in on a bass line, do it.
Yeah.
Listen to Rush, Alien Shore, listen to that song, and tell me if that bass line doesn't sound like an acoustic guitar line.
Yeah.
Like somebody sitting by a campfire,
Right.
just strumming away. Like now, he's really good,
Yeah.
and he's really tight,
Yeah.
but that bass line is so live and
Yeah.
active, and is such that bass line is the song to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I almost don't really care what Alex is playing on guitar
Right.
or what Neil does on the drums or even what Geddy's singing.
Yeah.
That bass line is such joy to
Oh,
me
yeah, that's
to
amazing.
listen to.
Yeah.
The song is
It
brilliant.
sounds like
Yeah,
like
it's
like
amazing.
like a campfire
Yeah,
acoustic guitar song to be played by a guy that you're like, oh, he's pretending to just be a guy who picked up a guitar at a campfire, but
Yeah.
he can kill us all
yeah.
with his guitar chops.
Yeah.
We had no
Oh, yeah,
idea
he's a
that
monster.
that Uncle Steve was this great guitar player, and he's nailing it.
I mean,
that's
it's-
what that bass line sounds
Yeah.
like to me. It brings me to a place of such pleasure. I'm like,
It's
how is
bizarre.
this? It's so casually
It's really
done,
bizarre how
and yet
Geddy
it's
Lee
so
is
complicated.
simultaneously completely everybody knows he's a bass god,
Yeah.
but he's curiously underrated.
Yeah,
He's
That-
better than everybody thinks he is.
that bass line in that song, any
It's filthy,
bass player
yeah.
worth his salt would go. I can't even touch that. Bass line. that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's so organic.
It's like
I can feel. I guess again, being a Rush fan, you have this indulgence. I can feel like I'm like that's the bass
Yeah.
line he's always wanted to play.
Oh well, yeah. You know it's
And
funny.
so that drives that whole song for me.
Yeah.
Alien
Oh,
Shore,
yeah, that-
and to a lesser extent, Cut to the Chase.
Okay.
But both songs on that same level,
Yeah.
where the bass line is really driving. I'm like, oh, this is Geddy's song.
Geddy's
I can just hear that guy.
Oh, yeah.
Geddy
in
is
this
so
song.
good,
Yeah.
right?
And
That-
everybody else, you can hear Alex and Neil pitching into the song. They're like,
Right.
"Oh, you're gonna
Yeah.
play that bass line? Well, oh my
I
god,
guess, yeah.
what are we gonna
Reminds
do?
me-
We'll do anything
Yeah.
because it'll just support
Yeah,
that
it's
bass
gonna
line."
support
Yeah,
that.
Geddy, that reminds me that Geddy is so good. Like, and I'm still so consistently blown away by him when I
Yeah.
listen to any of this stuff right now.
Yeah.
that it reminds me of this thing that the guitar player from Oasis, the brothers. Which one is the?
Yeah, Gallagher.
Liam.
Yeah, it's Gallagher, but no, Liam is the singer.
Yeah, Noel is the guitar.
Okay, so Noel Gallagher once said this about Johnny Marr from the Smiths, who godlike, right?
Yeah.
And Geddy, this reminds me of Geddy. He goes, "Do you know how fucking good Johnny Marr is? Johnny Marr's so fucking good, he's not as good as he is."
Yeah.
Geddy Lee is that.
Exactly.
He's so good
That's right.
that even though people know he's good because they've been told that he's good, but if they understood how good he is,
Yeah.
he would be off the like. People are like, John Paul Jones and all those guys who are amazing. Don't get me wrong, right? But Geddy Lee to me is like Jaco Pastorius level shit. He is ridiculous,
And that is one of those deep album cuts.
and it's
that,
brilliant.
That
yeah,
will absolutely
great choice.
illuminate that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a fan of music or musicians at all.
Yeah.
You listen to that song, you're like, oh, I hate Rush.
Right.
But wow, that guy, it's a player's song.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
What do you got, Brian?
Well, I had to change to a different part of my list because,
Really?
because I was going to say Alien Shore.
Oh, is that true?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, of course. It's a
Unbelievable.
it's a banger for sure.
Is that the first overlap so far?
No, I think didn't we overlap on subdivisions?
No.
No. That's the first.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I did. I had subdivisions.
Yeah,
okay.
I did too.
And he did.
And I crossed it off
so-
immediately because I knew somebody else was going to bring it up.
I took one off from Grace because I just thought we
Which one?
I have Between the Wheels.
Yeah.
No, right, okay.
Yeah, so I replaced it with
Which we
Whoops.
half covered anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
what do you got, Brian?
I'm going to have to dip into the jar of like other ones that went past the 5. And I'm going to go to Power Windows. And I'm going to go with Middletown Dreams.
Oh yeah.
God damn it.
Yeah.
That is a
Holy fucking moly.
Now
Yeah.
in the Rush pantheon and among fans in general, in a very general picture of that's a Z song.
Yeah.
What do you
I
mean
don't
by
know
that?
if love it or hate it.
Okay.
Oh, come on. It's the fucking Power Windows camera eye.
There's no middle
amazing.
ground from the people that I've interacted with. Over
Really?
the years.
I didn't know that about it.
That is a song that people either absolutely stand behind and would take a bullet for, or they're like, that's Taishan Part 1.
Well, that's interesting because I would have
I don't
thought,
feel that way.
Yeah.
I would have
I would take a
thought
bullet for it.
It was more of a nobody cared at all.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's a polarizing song. And
Well, I didn't
again,
know that, but
that's
it's
my own
brilliant.
personal
It's one of my
experience.
favorites for sure.
I agree with
on
you
that record
100%. It's one of my. It's in the top.
Yeah, it's a. Wow.
Right.
You know, I mean, what do you really say about it? Very, very, very. Again, with the people that are like, it's too bright and positive.
Yeah. And
Rush
then
is.
have
Have you heard
Wriggler.
this one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's another
Wow,
one.
really?
It's basically a film noir, but done to
Yeah,
music.
it's
right.
It was really emotive again because with Alex during the terrible synth years where there was too much synths, Alex emotive guitar genius is proving that that's not even true. Wow, so that's mine. Yeah.
Nice.
What do you got? What's your
So
next?
my last one.
Last one.
Is Free Will, which I think
Yeah.
is like,
Wow.
So that song
Again?
lyrically again like just encompasses like I was getting into punk rock and stuff, and that's just almost
It
the same kind of thing.
refuses to
Now-
be overplayed.
And that's another one with like that when we were talking about as a bass player, that breakdown in the middle where it's like boom, boom, yeah, and then just that's like that was the first time when I was like, holy shit! And then like Alex comes in with that guitar solo. It's just and then it just and then it just goes right back into the each of us.
It keeps up a very frenetic pace. And then they very naturally and organically, and I think that's a thing that a lot of people misunderstand about Rush. It's like it's a sterile factory of musicians. And it's not emotional.
Yeah.
And yet it's entirely 180 for that for me.
Oh yeah.
Is that if you listen to it at that level, you're like, okay, they're playing things that I couldn't. For me, it was a dream. I'm like, they're playing things I couldn't ever possibly play. And then they very organically together as 3 guys bring it back down and make another statement, and then we come into another part and we start singing about it. I'm like, I can hear that these guys are all feeling it together. And I was envious of that. I'm like, I wish I could feel that with my brother, my sister, my friends. I'm like, that kind of connection, I could hear it in the music.
Oh,
so
yeah.
so for
Yeah,
me,
that you
people
hear
like,
them.
it's sterile. It's antiseptic.
very,
I'm like,
very
not
much.
at all.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, to me. I'm like, okay, I can't. Nobody can play like
Yeah.
that, but it's a fantasy to me. And
Yeah.
it's
It's very
how they
much.
put
It's
it together.
very much the way that jazz players connect in
Yeah.
the sense
Yeah,
of like John Coltrane, who I know, this will probably get me fucking murdered. I'm not as big a fan as everybody wants
might
me
murder
to be,
you. I can
right?
do that,
Coltrane.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. I love Coltrane, but I don't think it's what people make it out to be, right? I'm mostly in because of Elvin. That's why I'm
Elvin
actually
Jones,
there.
the drummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
But it's undeniable that these two are playing shit that you can't understand, even if it's written out for you.
Yeah.
And they're perfectly in sync with each other.
Right.
And you can't. That's what's going on with that Rush track.
Yeah.
With Free Will these are three dudes right here that are speaking a language that you do not fucking
But
understand.
is there a
right now.
brotherhood there to you,
Of-
Brian? Of these guys are all communicating on the same level, and they're bringing it there, and it's emotional rather than we're just reading charts and we're playing it and it's antiseptic.
No, that's what I mean. Is like with the Rush song, it goes way beyond. You can't write that.
Like the jazz guys, right? A lot of those guys, much of that was based on what do you know, who do you know, what songs do you know, and can you improv with me and can you keep up with me? And they were testing each other.
Exactly.
And then so if you're
and there's also a
even
thing,
if you're not a musician, you're hearing. Even as a non-musician, you're hearing jazz musicians if they're improvising, if they're testing each other. You're hearing the relationship, and you're like, oh yeah. They're bring it on, come on.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm playing the piano. McCoy Tyner's flying around. He's
flying
like,
around.
and the bass
Yeah.
player, I'm Leroy Vinegar's like, I'm gonna bring it in, right? And they're all doing that. In Rush, it was a lot like that. I didn't know what jazz was.
Right.
But
No,
I'm
and
like,
that's what I mean. Is
these
like
guys
with
are
that
communicating, so I'm feeling an emotion.
with that song.
Yeah.
It was kind of a revelation to me that exactly of the idea that okay, so it isn't about writing it down on a piece of paper. It isn't about following the music.
Absolutely
it isn't
not.
about any of that. It's a different. It's an emotional connection. It's a simpatico thing between these three dudes that isn't. I'm trying to think of how to. It's hard to describe it. It goes way beyond. Anybody, no matter how good of a musician they are, could learn to play this piece of music.
Right, yeah.
You will never, ever fucking play it like that.
And you're not going to capture that.
Ever in your life. It's I don't know what the word for that is, but
It literally sounds like the three of them are all facing each other, like we are right here.
And amazingly enough, in that particular song in Free Will, I think it's interesting to note that arguably all three instruments are playing lead.
Yeah.
For a lot of it. And again, that's what
everybody is playing lead, and
Brian,
they're all playing their own thing, and yet somehow they're fucking still all playing the same song
together. Again, it's very jazz. It's almost inescapably jazz, and maybe that's where it loses a lot of people because you can't listen to that song passively
no
and get anything out of it. I think it would either bore you or irritate you.
And strangely
you
enough,
have to actively listen to it, and if you actively listen to it, then that's a whole other level of things, and you're like, okay, I'm paying attention to this.
and it's incredibly
it's driving me nuts, or it's pleasing me. It's one or the other. I mean, that's why Rush is such a divisive band, right?
Of course.
If you're actively listening to them and it's pleasing you, then you're in.
Right.
Even if you don't like half of their catalog.
Yeah.
But if you're actively listening to it and it's not pleasing you, you're
yeah.
out. Yeah.
And
it's very taxing. It can
that's
be
one
exhausting.
of those weird songs too that strangely has this thing where it's incredibly almost, we're almost back to have to make something up to describe how much.
Right.
It's incredibly tight,
Yeah.
but it's loaded with feel and groove.
Yeah.
How can it be so exactly on the money and still yet have a feel?
So-
and it is. It's amazing.
That's why it's my
Right.
And it's angry.
I mean,
Yeah.
I
It's like
listened
YYZ on fucking steroids.
I listened to
it's
Free
nuts.
Will a million times before I ever found out who Steely Dan was.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like I knew who that band was, but it was
Yeah,
for
but we
my
weren't paying
it was for
attention
my
then,
friend's
yeah.
dad, and I didn't
Right.
care, and it took me a long time to get into them. I'm a huge fan of
The
theirs.
bass
now.
line is
But-
ludicrous.
But
Yeah, it's disgusting.
It's absurd.
Yeah.
the reason I bring up Steely Dan and Rush is that Free Will to me sounds like Kid Charlemagne,
Yeah,
the song Steely Dan.
Oh,
song,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
On
You're
78.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like put
Yeah.
that tightness in that production, but then play it like as if you all took speed.
And
Right?
wait, and we're back to and with a vocal.
yeah,
Right.
I know. Yeah, and he's singing.
Holy
over it.
moly, right? Like,
Free
what a
Will-
that song is a monster.
It's a song that I would only overlook because I love it so implicitly.
Yeah.
I don't even consider
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
It's one
Yeah,
of the, it's
it's a
like
given.
subdivisions.
Yeah,
It's
right,
rote.
yeah. Spirit
Right?
of the
It's like
Spirit of
Xanadu.
Radio, yeah.
I mean, Christian,
Yeah.
you brought up Xanadu and Free Will, two of my favorite songs that I would never bring up
Right.
myself,
Yeah.
even though they're two of my favorite
Yeah. Yeah.
songs.
And that one is a monster for
Yeah.
sure. I mean,
Yeah.
it's and live, it's a beast.
Yeah.
It's one of the songs that I enjoyed throughout decades of Rush shows.
Yeah.
I never would leave when they would
Yeah.
play it. I would
Yeah.
go, oh, they're going to play Free Will.
Right.
And every time I would see them play it live, I would be shocked that they could fucking play it
Yeah.
live.
Yeah. I know.
Every time.
Yeah.
You'd never go, yeah, I know they can play it, but I
It-
can't believe they could play it.
I mean, to a certain extent, you know, Rush is kind of
Awesome.
like in a sports team. You're like, I want to see if they can still make the pass, if they
Yeah.
can still get into the end zone.
yeah, Tom Brady's too old for
Right.
this game now. Oh, is he? Let's find
Right?
out.
Right.
Yeah.
If their goalie is still awesome, if they
Right,
can
right.
still do it, right? So
Yeah.
they play Free Will, and you'd be like, oh, here we go. We're gonna see if they can do it or
Yeah.
if they can't.
Yeah.
And of course, they again, as a live band, I don't even understand this.
Right.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
As somebody who's played live,
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
you know, I mean, again, a drop in the bucket compared to them.
Yeah.
Every live performance I've ever done
Yeah.
has been a tightrope act.
Right.
And
Yeah.
usually, with rare
Well-
exception, it's been a success.
Yeah.
Sure. Much
But
in
with my own self being my own worst critic, and
Right.
that's the end of it.
Yeah.
And so I can imagine these guys on that
Oh,
scale,
of course.
right? I'm like, okay, so they're their own worst critic. They must hate every show they do. Practically,
Right.
there's probably 5 that they've got in their bucket
Yeah.
list, right?
And-
Right.
You know, I'm a band that's played 10,000 shows,
Right.
right? And to come out on stage every time I ever saw them,
Yeah.
right, a dozen times,
Yeah.
maybe more,
Yeah.
to just absolutely come to a level where they said, look, we've got to at least meet what we
Yeah.
presented on a record, if not eclipse that.
Yeah.
That's the bare minimum. Go.
And they, of course, they had the
That's
reputation.
incredible.
Oh,
That's
that's amazing.
ridiculous.
Yeah, the reputation the entire time of
Yeah.
that you absolutely knew without question that when you went to see Rush,
Yeah.
they would never, ever, under any circumstances, would any part of it be phoned in. Ever.
Yeah.
They
And
took
they
great pains
maintained-
to, yeah.
I will honestly say, and I don't say this lightly because I'm honest as a music fan. I really am. If a band I love does something that fucked up, I'm like, you idiots, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
I've never seen Rush ever, not one time ever in. I've seen Rush probably realistically 20 times.
Yeah.
I mean, well, from 1988. When was Hold Your Fire? 88.
85. No, 87.
Okay, so
87, yeah.
from 87 until before Clockwork Angels,
Yeah.
I would go to almost
Every show.
every single tour
Yeah.
and go to every show at least twice.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've seen the band 20 times more,
Yeah.
and I can honestly tell you I've never ever once seen them have a bad night ever.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I know that I've seen them on nights where they're like, "Oh fuck," right?
Right.
I have never ever left a Rush show ever going,
Yeah.
Okay.
I know, there's never been.
I
people
left the Rush
complain
show
about this-
bitching about
I mean,
why is this
yeah.
still in the set list
Right,
and everything
right.
else, but
Yeah,
I've
sure.
never left going, oh,
No,
really?
you're
Maybe
honest.
it's over.
You're honest.
Maybe
Yeah,
they
it's
can't
never
do it.
happened.
Never,
Look,
not once.
You're
ever.
honest. You're honest and you're biased, but
Yeah.
you're right. You're like the worst Rush show I ever saw,
It's still
and I
amazing.
remember that
Yeah.
was still an absolutely amazing show in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's only because I'm so, you know, I'm such a fan
Yeah.
that I'm like, okay, I have the extra liberty of being able to kind of dissect this
Yeah, yeah,
particular
yeah.
show.
Yeah,
That's
the
it.
worst, the worst thing that would happen at a Rush show was that the set list. You'd be like, it's
You're
this
right,
wasn't
Red
as
Sector
good as
A
that.
again?
Right, but
Right, but
if
yeah,
that's
but
the
if-
worst thing, you know.
If they mailed in anything, it was a set list.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah, but the actual performance, like you said, it's always going to be.
So elevated that, and there's other bands like that I can say, like with some bands, it's like a band like Yes is a good
Right.
example. It impresses me how many times I've seen Yes and how 0 of those times were they subpar in any way.
Right.
And it's super crazy just because of how ridiculous the band is. Like, how do you bring that level of that multiple times over multiple years, sometimes over decades, and you never fucked it up once? Dude, I can't walk out of this room without screwing it up. And you guys are seriously going to play Close to the Edge from beginning to end multiple times over decades?
The whole album.
Right in front of me in live setting and do it?
Right. Bring it.
Yeah, so,
Rush. And we're all 60-year-old
the live
men,
version of Free Will, right?
Yeah.
Just, Jesus Christ. What?
Exit Stage Left again.
Yeah, again,
that record is,
Oh, that record is a monster.
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
Yeah, we were saying the first live one, but
one of the best...
first one is But the very first Rush album I ever heard was Exit Stage Left, and that was...
It was the second album I ever heard. It was because I bought Moving Pictures.
That's right.
And then when I had money to buy a cassette or whatever, it was that one because I understood somehow that it was the live recording.
Yeah.
And it had songs on it from... that I knew.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, but it introduced me to, Jesus Christ.
Right.
Where did this one come from?
Yeah,
Where did that one come
right.
from? Where it was so spread out,
Yeah. And then I remember it had that Bruins Bane thing on it.
Yeah, Bruins Bane.
Which isn't on it, and I remember, like, at that time going...
that version of Jacob's Ladder is monstrous.
That
awesome.
song
Incredible.
almost made one of my lists.
Yeah. Awesome.
But that'll be on the next one. Because sitting here doing this, I was just thinking, like, we'll definitely do this exact same thing again.
Right.
Oh, yeah. We should do... Well, I love this format, and I think it's fun, and I think we should also do it with other bands.
Yeah. Oh,
well,
definitely.
and again, I wrote down 12 songs.
Yeah.
And crossed off a bunch, and then, as you guys mentioned, some crossed off even more.
Yep.
So I think the 5-song thing was a great...
Yeah, and I think... I have like ones I'm thinking of in my head right now, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna fucking write them. I think we should do it like we did it here again next time, and just.
Yep, I actually like the idea of this format.
Doing it on the spot
with other stuff we've talked about.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like, what about this format, but top 5 underrated players?
Yeah,
right.
It could be, that would be fun.
Yeah. Or top 5 keyboard players that ever ate a curry while they were...
Rick Wakeman.
Yeah, Wakeman, that's about that.
Waiting to play a solo. Right.
That's the best story
Wakeman's
that's
Curry.
ever happened.
We should start a band. I'm starting it tonight. It's called Wakeman's Curry. None of us play keyboards, by the way, so that's the deep irony.
Exactly.
Can we get
Check it out.
John Anderson to sing on it?
Yeah, it'll be on Bandcamp.
Our new album, will be coming out next week. All right,
man. A song about Rick's curry.
Right.
Well,
thanks, man. Yeah,
please.
We will
awesome.
definitely do this
so
again.
Much fun, yeah.
And I hope you, as the listener, enjoyed listening to this. And if you're a Rush fan, I'm sure you probably enjoyed this. And if you're not,
if you're not a Rush fan, I would be shocked if you sat
there.
If
you're not a Rush fan, you're probably not listening.
What are you doing at the end of this podcast?
Yeah, why are you still listening to this nerd?
Yeah, what's wrong with you?
Go away.
Glutton for punishment?
Yeah, go enjoy your...
Leave now.
Yeah.
Go buy some Rush records.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.